June 17th, 1886. Skeleton Canyon, Arizona Territory. 23 men on horseback spread thin across the rocks like a shadow trying to cover the sun. We were hunting the most dangerous man in the Southwest. Geronimo. The name alone made men check their rifles twice, whisper prayers they thought no one heard, and wonder if they'd see another sunrise. I was Corporal Thaddeus Hartwell, 24 years old. Born in Montana Territory, raised by a father who taught me to read land the way preachers read scripture. Every ridge told a story. Every creek bed held secrets. Every cluster of trees meant water or death, depending on how you read the signs. The Army called me a cartographer, fancy word for a man who draws maps. I carried rolled parchment in my saddlebag instead of extra ammunition, ink instead of whiskey, a compass instead of playing cards. Most soldiers thought I was soft. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about a lot of things. Ahead of our column rode Desba Redstone, 26 years old, Chiricahua Apache, 5'6", lean as a whip with black hair she kept tied back with a strip of worn leather that looked older than both of us combined. She wore cavalry pants, dark blue wool that had to be hell in this heat, and a cotton shirt the color of desert sand. The Army had asked her to wear their uniform. She'd refused. Said she'd scout for them, but she wouldn't pretend to be one of them. They'd let it slide because good Apache scouts were worth more than regulations. She kept her moccasins, though. Said boots made too much noise. Said a man in boots was a dead man in Apache country. She was our scout, our guide, our translator, the only person in that godforsaken desert who knew where water hid and where death waited. The only bridge between two worlds that had been at war for longer than I'd been alive. I hated her, not her specifically, not the woman. I hated what she represented. 3 years earlier, in the summer of 1883, Apache warriors had raided a ranch outside Fort Bowie, killed 14 people, men, women, children. Didn't discriminate. Among the dead was my uncle Thomas Hartwell. He'd gone west to start a cattle operation. Sent letters every month about the beautiful sunsets and the land that stretched forever. Then one day the letter stopped. A week later, I got a telegram. Thomas killed. Stop Apache raid. Stop body recovered. Stop funeral Saturday. Stop. I was 21 when I got that telegram. 21 when I learned that some hatreds don't need a face. They just need a name. Apache. That name became a wall inside me, a border I couldn't cross. Every Apache I saw my uncle's killer. Didn't matter if they were warriors or women or children playing in the dust. They were all the same to me, all enemies. But the Army needed scouts, needed people who knew the land, and the only people who really knew Arizona Territory were the ones who'd lived here for centuries, the Apache. So the Army hired defectors, turned enemies into employees, put them on the payroll and called it progress. It made me sick. Captain Henry Lawton commanded our expedition. 40 years old West Point, educated with a gray beard that was going white at the edges and eyes that never stopped calculating. He carried himself like a man who'd seen too much and learned to live with it. His uniform was always perfect despite the dust and heat. Buttons polished, boots shined, like maintaining standards mattered more than comfort. He'd been chasing Geronimo for 6 months, through Mexico and back across the border, through mountains and deserts and canyons where men vanished and never came back. This was supposed to be the final push. End the Apache wars for good. Bring Geronimo in dead or alive, preferably alive for political reasons. But Washington wouldn't shed tears if he came back draped over a horse. Riding beside me was Sergeant Garrett Kane, 35 years old, built like an ox that had been carved from granite and taught to walk. Shoulders broad enough to carry 2 men, hands like sledgehammers. A scar ran from his left ear to his jawline, raised in pink and ugly. Souvenir from a Mescalero arrow in '79. He'd taken the arrow out himself, stitched the wound with horsehair, and finished the patrol. The kind of man who didn't know how to quit. He made no secret of his feelings about Desba. Don't trust her, Corporal, Kane had told me that morning while we saddled our horses in the pre-dawn darkness. His voice was low, meant for my ears only. Apache's an Apache. Blood don't wash clean. I don't care what uniform she pretends to wear. I don't care what promises she makes. When it matters, when lead starts flying, she'll turn on us. They always do. I hadn't disagreed, hadn't said a word, just tightened Scout's saddle straps and checked my rifle for the 3rd time. Kane had continued, his hands never stopping their work. I seen it before. We had a scout on the Mescalero campaign. Rode with us for 2 months. Good tracker. Never caused trouble. Then one day we walked into an ambush. Found out later he'd been feeding information to the hostiles the whole time. Led us straight to the killing ground. He'd touched his scar unconsciously. Lost 8 men that day, good men. Men with families waiting back east. What happened to the scout man, I'd asked. Captain shot him, right there in the canyon. Didn't even wait for a trial. Kane had looked at me. Some men said it was murder. I said it was justice. Now riding through Skeleton Canyon under the hammer of the Arizona sun, I thought about that story. Wondered if Desba was leading us into our own killing ground. Wondered if Kane was right to distrust her. Wondered why Lawton trusted her at all. The sun hammered down on us like the fist of an angry god. 110 degrees easy, maybe higher. The kind of heat that makes your eyes ache and your thoughts slow down to a crawl. Sweat soaked through my shirt within the first hour, leaving salt stains on the blue wool that turned white as they dried. My canteen was already half empty, and we'd barely started. I rationed the water, letting it sit on my tongue before swallowing, making each mouthful count. My horse, a bay gelding named Scout, original name I know, but he'd come with it, and changing a horse's name seemed like bad luck, breathed hard through his nostrils. I could feel the heat coming off his body, smell the sweat and leather and dust that made up cavalry life. We'd been riding since dawn. Now it was past noon and the heat was at its worst. Skeleton Canyon earned its name honestly. The rocks jutted from the earth like vertebrae and from some ancient beast that had died trying to crawl out of hell. Ribs of stone, spines of sandstone, everything bleached white by centuries of sun. Saguaro cactus stood silent, watched their arms raised to heaven in permanent surrender. Cholla cactus clustered in the shadows, waiting to stick needles in anything stupid enough to brush against them. The whole place smelled of dust and creosote and something else, something older, like the land itself was holding its breath, waiting, watching. Desba raised her hand without looking back, the signal to stop. 23 horses pulled up short. Leather creaked, canteen sloshed. Men wiped their faces with bandanas that were already soaked through. Some spit into the dust, trying to get the grit out of their mouths. Desba dismounted in one fluid motion, like water finding a path. She knelt beside a set of tracks in the hardpan, ran her fingers along the edge of a hoof print, pressing into the compressed earth. Then she touched those fingers to her tongue. Kane made a sound of disgust deep in his throat. Savage, he muttered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Not loud enough to reach Desba. Or maybe she heard and chose to ignore it. Hard to tell with her. Lawton walked his horse forward. What do you have, Miss Redstone? She stood slowly, her eyes scanning the canyon walls, left side, right side, back the way we came. Her hand drifted toward the knife on her belt, a movement so subtle I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching. But I'd learned to watch her. The way she moved told stories. Right now she was telling a story about danger. 4 horses, she said. Her voice was low, controlled. The voice of someone who'd learned that showing emotion was weakness. Unshod. Apache ponies, moving northeast, fast. How fast, Lawton asked. Fast enough they weren't trying to hide their trail. Fast enough they knew exactly where they were going. She paused, her nostrils flaring slightly, like she was scenting the air. 2 hours old, maybe less. Geronimo, Lawton's voice carried hope. After 6 months of chasing ghosts, he wanted something solid. Could be. Desba walked a slow circle around the tracks, her moccasins making no sound on the hardpan, reading the ground the way I read maps. But what? Lawton leaned forward in his saddle. She looked up at the rocks above us, the way the canyon walls rose on both sides, creating natural choke points, natural ambush positions, places where 10 men could hold off 100 if they knew what they were doing. And the Apache always knew what they were doing. Speak plainly, woman, Kane snapped. His hand was on his rifle now, not raising it, not yet, but ready. Desba's eyes met his. No fear in them. No anger either. Just something cold and flat, like looking into a well that has no bottom. The kind of look that said she'd seen men like Kane before, had dealt with them, survived them. We're being watched, she said simply. The effect was immediate. Every man in that canyon went still. Hands moved to rifle stocks. Eyes searched the shadows between boulders, looking for movement, for the glint of sun on metal, for anything that didn't belong. I saw nothing. Just rock and heat shimmer and sky so blue it hurt to look at. Just the endless variations of brown and red and tan that made up Arizona territory. Just the silence that felt like it was waiting to be broken by gunfire. How many? Lawton asked quietly. His hand was on his sidearm now, a Colt revolver that he kept so clean you could see your reflection in the barrel. Desba shook her head slowly. Can't tell, but they know we're here. They've known since we entered the canyon. Maybe before. Kane spat into the dust, a brown stream of tobacco juice that left a dark stain on the lighter earth. This is horse shit, Captain. She's spooking us on purpose, probably signaling her Apache friends right now with all that hand-waving, setting us up for a massacre. Sergeant, that's enough. Lawton's voice carried the kind of authority that ends conversations, the kind of tone that reminded everyone he was West Point and they weren't, that he made decisions and they followed orders. Sir, with respect, Kane started. I said enough. Lawton's voice went cold, the kind of cold that promised consequences. One more word and you're on report. Kane's jaw clenched, muscles bunched, but he stayed silent. 3 years of military discipline overriding 3 years of hatred. Lawton turned back to Desba. Can we proceed safely? She was quiet for a long moment, her eyes distant, like she was calculating odds that only she could see. Define safely. A few nervous laughs from the men. Not many. Most were too busy scanning the ridgelines. How far to water? Lawton asked. Different question. More practical. 6 miles, maybe 7. There's a spring at the north end of the canyon, hidden in the rocks. Geronimo's people use it, have used it for generations. It's sacred ground. Will they fight for it? Depends. On what? On whether they think you're worth the ammunition. She said it matter-of-factly, not a threat, just truth delivered plain. More silence. The kind that makes men check their weapons and think about letters they should have written to people back home. I pulled out my map, unrolled it across my saddle, the parchment crackling in the dry air. Drew a line with my pencil marking our position relative to the last known landmark. A distinctive rock formation we'd passed 2 hours ago. I'd been mapping this expedition for 2 months. Every waterhole, every canyon, every place where good men could die if they didn't know the terrain. Every place where knowing the difference between safe passage and killing ground mattered. Montana had taught me that maps save lives. If you know where you are, you know how to get home. If you know where the water is, you know where to fight and where to run. If you mark the dangerous places, maybe the next man through doesn't have to learn the hard way. But looking at that blank space on my parchment, the area north of our current position, I realized something that made my stomach tight. Desba Redstone had maps in her head that my pencil could never draw. She knew which shadows held water and which held death. She knew the language of rocks and wind and the small things that moved in the corners of your vision. She knew where to step and where not to step. Which plants were medicine and which were poison. Which paths led home and which led to graves. She knew this land because it was hers, had been her people's for longer than my people had known this continent existed. And we were the invaders. The thought sat uncomfortably in my chest like something hard and sharp that I couldn't swallow and couldn't spit out. I pushed it away, buried it under 3 years of hatred and grief and the memory of a telegram that changed everything. Mount up, Lawton ordered. His voice was steady, confident, the voice of a man who'd made harder decisions than this and lived with them. We push for the spring. Stay alert. Rifles ready, but don't fire unless fired upon. Desba, you lead. Corporal Hartwell ride behind her. Map everything. I want a record of this route. I nudged Scout forward until I was 10 paces behind Desba's paint mare. A pretty horse, mostly white with brown patches. She'd named it Cloud. I'd heard her talking to it one morning when she thought no one was listening. Speaking Apache, soft words that sounded like affection. I was close enough now to see the tension in her shoulders, the way she held herself ready for anything. Close enough to watch her head swivel constantly, reading the terrain with senses I didn't have. She scanned the rocks, the shadows, the places where men could hide, where death could wait. She didn't look back at me once. We moved deeper into Skeleton Canyon. The walls narrowed gradually, closed in on both sides like the canyon was swallowing us. Rose higher, maybe 80 feet of striated sandstone and limestone. Layers of geological history written in color red and cream and rust brown and pale yellow. Each layer representing thousands of years, millions maybe. Time measured in stone instead of heartbeats. Heat radiated off the rocks like standing too close to a forge. The air shimmered, bent light into strange shapes that looked almost like people until you focused and realized it was just heat and hope and fear playing tricks. My canteen was half empty. I rationed the water carefully, letting it sit on my tongue before swallowing, making each drop count. Scout's breathing was labored. I'd water him at the spring, let him drink deep. A horse was only as good as his health, and Scout had carried me faithfully for 6 months. Desba stopped again. This time she dismounted and walked ahead on foot, moving between boulders with the silence of smoke drifting on still air. No sound, no scuff of foot on stone, no rustle of cloth. She moved like she was part of the landscape instead of separate from it. Kane rode up beside me, kept his voice low meant only for my ears. She's leading us into an ambush, Corporal. Mark my words. I've seen it before. They always turn, always. Captain trusts her, I said, neutral, not agreeing or disagreeing. Captain's a fool. Kane said it flat, without heat, like stating a fact. Book learning don't mean shit in Apache country. I got 3 years of scars that say trust gets you killed. I didn't respond. Wasn't my place to agree or disagree with how a sergeant talked about our commanding officer. The Army had rules about that. Chain of command, respect for rank, all the things that kept 23 men from becoming a mob with guns. But I understood Kane's anger. Understood it bone deep. He'd lost men to Apache raids. Good men. Friends. When you've held a dying soldier in your arms, when you've heard him call for his mother in the language that pain reduces us all to German or English or Irish, or whatever tongue we learned at our mother's knee, when you felt his blood soak into your uniform and go cold and known there was nothing you could do, nothing anyone could do. You don't forgive easy. You don't forgive at all. Desba returned. Her face was unreadable. Rockfall ahead. Recent. We need to dismount. Lead the horses through single file. It's narrow, unstable. How recent? Lawton asked. Always the practical questions. Always thinking tactics. This morning, maybe triggered by riders, maybe natural. Can't tell. Geronimo's people. Or us being followed. The men exchanged glances. That was the thing about the Apache. They didn't need armies, didn't need supply lines or logistics or any of the things the U.S. Army depended on. 4 warriors could pin down 40 soldiers and disappear like morning dew when the sun rose. Could live off the land for weeks. Could travel 50 miles in a day on foot while cavalry horses dropped dead from exhaustion. We dismounted, led our horses through a narrow gap where boulders had tumbled down from above, leaving sharp edges and unstable footing. Rocks that shifted when you stepped on them. Spaces where a misstep meant a broken ankle or worse. Scout picked his way carefully. I kept one hand on his bridle, the other on my rifle. The Winchester felt heavy, reassuring. 44 caliber, 15 rounds if I'd loaded it right that morning, which I had, I always did. Ahead of me, Desba moved like water finding a path. No wasted motion, no hesitation. She tested each rock before committing her weight. Read the angle of shadows to judge stability. Knew which stones would hold and which would roll. I found myself watching her, studying how she placed her feet, how she shifted her balance, how she used her hands for stability on the steeper sections. She was teaching me without saying a word, without knowing I was learning. Or maybe she knew. Maybe that was the point. We emerged on the far side of the rockfall into a wider section of canyon. The walls pulled back, giving us breathing room, space to maneuver if something went wrong. Desba remounted, raised her hand again. Water ahead, 1 mile, maybe less. The men perked up, straightened in their saddles. Horses sensed it 2 ears, forward pace quickening. The promise of water in the desert was like the promise of heaven to a dying man. But Desba's face remained tight, worried, the kind of worry that comes from knowing something bad and having to choose whether to speak. What is it? I asked. The words came out before I could stop them. First time I'd spoken directly to her in the 6 weeks she'd been our scout. First time I'd acknowledged her as anything other than a necessary evil. She glanced back at me. Her eyes were the color of dark honey with flecks of gold that caught the light. They held mine for 1 second. 2. Long enough for me to see intelligence there. Pain there. Weariness there. The spring is sacred ground, she said. Her English was perfect. No accent. Just clarity. Apache have used it for 200 years. Before the Spanish. Before your people. It's where we bring our sick. Where we pray for rain. Where we bury our dead sometimes. She paused. Your cavalry coming here with guns and horses taking water, without asking, without respect. She trailed off, looked forward again. It's a violation. We need water, I said, defensive, knowing it was weak even as I said it. I know. Will they fight us for it? If I were them, she turned forward again, scanned the rocks ahead. Yes. We rode in silence after that. The only sounds were hoofbeats on stone and the creak of leather and the breathing of men who knew they might be riding toward their deaths. The sun began its descent toward the western horizon. 4 o'clock, maybe. The heat remained brutal, but the quality of light changed, grew heavier somehow, more golden. Shadows lengthened across the canyon floor, reaching toward us like dark fingers. I smelled water before I saw it. A coolness in the air, a hint of green in all this brown. Desert willow trees appeared, first thin branches swaying in a breeze I couldn't feel. Beyond them, tucked against the canyon wall and where erosion had carved out a hollow, a spring bubbled up from between rocks and formed a pool maybe 15 feet across. It was the most beautiful thing I'd seen in weeks. Clear water. Real water. Not the alkaline poison we sometimes found. Not the muddy runoff. This was the kind of water that saved lives. Desba dismounted 30 yards from the spring, held up her hand. Everyone stays here. I go first. Alone. Like hell, Kane said. His hand was on his rifle. Could be 20 Apache hiding in those trees, waiting for us to bunch up like sheep. If there were, you'd already be dead. Desba said it without heat, just fact. Apache don't miss from ambush range. If they wanted you dead, you'd have arrows in your chest before you heard the bowstring. She walked forward slowly, hands visible and empty, no weapons drawn, singing something low in her throat. Apache words I didn't understand. A prayer maybe, or an apology, or a request for permission from whatever spirits her people believed watched over sacred places. She knelt at the water's edge, dipped her fingers in, brought them to her lips, tasted the water like communion wine, then stood and scanned the rocks above her, eyes searching the places where sentries would position themselves. After a long moment that felt like an hour, she turned back to us. It's clear, but take only what you need. Don't waste, don't foul it. Show respect. The men surged forward, not running, not quite, but moving with the urgency of people who'd been rationing water in 100-degree heat. I stayed back with Lawton watching, making sure no one did anything stupid, making sure they followed Desba's instructions. She walked to the western side of the spring where yellow flowers grew in a cluster. I watched her pick a few stems, tuck them carefully into her saddlebag. I led Scout to the water. He drank deep, his whole body relaxing as cool water filled his belly. I refilled my canteen, capped it tight, then cupped my hands and brought water to my face. Cold, sweet, like mercy in liquid form, like the opposite of everything Arizona Territory tried to be. When I looked up, Desba was climbing the rocks on the south side of the canyon, moving upward with purpose, not casual exploration, something specific. Where's she going? Kane demanded. Loud enough for everyone to hear, loud enough to carry accusation. High ground, Lawton said calmly, like he'd expected this. Probably wants a view of our back trail, see if anyone is following. Or signaling her people. Kane's hand was back on his rifle. Sergeant, I swear to God. Lawton's patience was wearing thin. That's when we heard it. A sound that stops hearts and empties bladders and makes brave men remember childhood prayers. The dry buzz that means you're too close to something that doesn't want you close. A sound that's been killing people in this desert for millions of years and will probably kill people for millions more. Rattlesnake. Everyone froze. Even the horses went still. The buzzing continued, angry, insistent, escalating, coming from the rocks where Desba had climbed, 20 feet above the canyon floor. From the ledge where she stood, I looked up, saw her standing on a boulder the size of a wagon, saw her go rigid, saw every muscle in her body lock, saw her head turn slowly, carefully, looking down at something I couldn't see from my angle. The western diamondback was coiled on a rock ledge 18 inches from her right foot. I caught a glimpse of it between stones. Big one, 4 feet long, thick as my forearm, diamond pattern on its back like nature's warning label. Its head raised in striking position, tongue flicking, tasting the air, measuring distance. Desba didn't move, didn't breathe, became a statue carved from brown stone. Don't move, someone shouted from below. Captain Obvious, useless advice, like telling water not to be wet. The snake's rattle blurred. The sound filled the canyon, bouncing off walls, multiplying until it seemed like 100 snakes surrounded us. The sound of death getting ready to strike. Desba shifted her weight, slow, testing whether she could step back, get out of range. The snake struck, fast, faster than thought, faster than prayer, faster than fear. Its fangs sank into her right inner thigh, high up, just below her hip, the intimate place where leg becomes body. Desba jerked back, lost her footing, started to fall backward off the boulder. She caught herself on the rock with her left hand. Hung there for a second that lasted forever. The snake dropped away, disappeared into a crevice, taking its rattle sound with it. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Desba pulled herself back onto the ledge, sat down hard. Her right hand went to her thigh, pressed against the wound. Christ, someone whispered. Maybe me. I was moving before I knew it, before thinking, before making the decision to move. My body just went, climbing the rocks. My boots slipped on loose stones, but I kept going. Scrambled up the face like my life depended on it. Maybe it did. Maybe all our lives did. Reached her in maybe 20 seconds that felt like 20 years. She'd already torn the fabric of her pants, ripped it open to expose the wound. I could see it clearly now. 2 puncture marks, dark blood welling up. The flesh around the bite already starting to swell, already turning purple-black like a bruise spreading in fast motion. Her face had gone pale under her brown skin. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Not heat sweat, pain sweat, fear sweat, the kind that smells different. Desba, I said, used her name for the first time. Heard how it sounded in my mouth. Strange, foreign, human. She looked at me. Those honey gold eyes now bright with pain and something else. Fear, real fear, the kind that comes when you know you might die and there's nothing you can do about it. Western Diamondback, she said through gritted teeth. Each word forced out. Hemotoxic venom. I have maybe 90 minutes before... She didn't finish. Didn't need to. I'd read the medical manuals. Knew what hemotoxic venom did. Destroyed tissue. Caused necrosis. Organ failure. Death. Below us, the men gathered, staring up. Kane was shaking his head. A few soldiers looked away, like they didn't want to watch what was going to happen. Lawton called up, "Can you climb down?" Desba tried to stand. Her right leg buckled immediately. She caught herself against the rock. "No. We'll come to you. Get you down. No time." Her breathing was getting faster, shallower. She grabbed my arm. Her fingers dug in hard enough to bruise. Hard enough that I'd carry the marks for a week. "Listen, you need to suck the venom out, now." I stared at her. "Now, Hartwell, I don't have time to explain. I don't have time to argue. You cut around the wound, not deep, just enough to open the skin. Then you put your mouth on it and you suck. Hard as you can. You spit it out. You repeat. You do it now or I die here. And if I die, you all die lost in this desert because none of you know the way out. None of you know where the water is. None of you know which paths are safe. Do you understand me?" Below us, Kane's voice carried up, loud, clear. "Don't touch her. Let nature take its course. Let God's will be done," Lawton shouted back. "Belay that order, Sergeant. That's enough." But I was barely listening. I was looking at the wound, already swelling, skin turning colors that skin shouldn't turn. I'd read about rattlesnake bites in a medical manual 2 years ago when I was preparing for this assignment. Hemotoxic venom destroys red blood cells, causes tissue death, then organ failure, then death itself. Sucking venom was controversial. Some frontier doctors said it worked, said it could remove 20, maybe 30% of the venom if you did it fast enough. Others said it was useless, dangerous even, could poison the person doing the sucking if they had cuts in their mouth. But we were 30 miles from the nearest fort. No doctor, no anti-venom, no hospital. Nothing but me and a woman who was going to die if I didn't do something right now. "You're sure?" I asked. Stupid question, but I needed to hear her say it again. "I'm Apache," she said. Each word slower now, like speaking was getting harder. "We've been dealing with rattlesnakes for 200 years, long before your doctors wrote their books." "Yes, I'm sure. Now do it." I pulled my knife from my belt, a Bowie knife my father had given me when I turned 16. 8-inch blade, carbon steel, sharp enough to shave with because I kept it that way. A dull knife was a useless knife. "This is going to hurt," I said. "Everything hurts. Do it." I made 4 small cuts around the puncture wounds, careful, shallow, just enough to let blood flow freely, just enough to open the tissue. She didn't make a sound, but I felt her leg muscles tense like steel cable under my hands. Felt her body go rigid with pain she wouldn't voice. Blood ran down her thigh, mixed with the venom. Dark and wrong, not the right color, not the right consistency. I looked at her face one more time. She nodded, just once. Permission and command and prayer all in one small movement. I put my mouth on the wound. The taste hit me immediately. Copper, salt, something bitter and chemical that made my tongue go numb within seconds. I sucked hard, pulling fluid into my mouth. Venom and blood mixed together in a cocktail of poison and life. I turned my head and spat into the dirt. The ground seemed to hiss where it landed, like the venom was still trying to kill even after leaving her body. I did it again. Sucked, spat. The taste coated my mouth, my throat. Made me want to gag, made my stomach turn. I forced it down and did it again, and again, and again. Desba's hand found my shoulder, not pushing me away, steadying herself, or maybe steadying me. Her fingers gripped hard. I could feel her shaking, from pain or fear or both. I lost count of how many times I repeated the process. 7, 8, maybe more. Each time less fluid came. Each time my mouth filled with the flavor of poison and pain and something else. Something intimate. Something that felt like crossing a border I hadn't known existed. Finally, she pushed my shoulder. Gentle but firm. Enough, enough. I sat back, wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, spat one more time to clear the taste. It didn't work. The taste stayed. Would stay for days probably. Below us, the canyon had gone completely silent. 23 men watching, some with mouths open, some with hands over their own mouths like they were going to be sick. Kane looked like he'd bitten into something rotten, like he'd watched something obscene. Desba was breathing hard. She pulled a strip of cloth from somewhere, maybe torn from her shirt, and wrapped it around her thigh. Tied it tight with shaking hands, a tourniquet, or just pressure, something to stop the bleeding. "Thank you," she said quietly. So quiet I almost didn't hear it. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. "Now we have a bigger problem," she continued. Her voice was weak but steady. "Venom's still in me. Sucking only removes maybe 20–30%. Enough to buy time. Not enough to save me. I need snakeweed. The yellow flowers you picked earlier, those are for cooking. Wrong kind. I need desert snakeweed, red stem variety. Only grows by running water. Not still water like the spring, moving water. Where's the nearest creek?" She closed her eyes. Her face was going gray, the color draining out of her like water from a broken jug. "West, 2 miles through the canyon. Small tributary. Creek runs year-round, but what?" She opened her eyes, looked at me directly. "Geronimo's men watch that creek. It's one of their main water sources. They have sentries, scouts. If you go there, you'll be seen." "How many warriors?" "Could be 3, could be 10, I don't know. They rotate, they move, but someone's always there, always watching." Below, Lawton called up, "What's the situation, Corporal?" I looked down at 23 upturned faces. "She needs a specific plant. It only grows 2 miles west, near a creek, but it might be guarded. I'll send 3 men with you." "No," Desba said sharply, then louder so they could all hear, so there was no confusion. 3 men make noise, make targets, big slow targets that Apache can see coming from a mile away. They'll be dead before they reach the water." "Then what do you suggest?" Lawton's voice had an edge now, the edge of a commander losing patience with a situation spiraling out of control. Desba tried to stand, managed it this time, but I saw the way her right leg trembled, saw the effort it took just to stay upright. She leaned on the rock for support. "1 man," she called down, her voice carrying despite the weakness. "Alone, quiet. Someone who moves like Apache, not cavalry, small, fast, light on his feet, gets the plant and comes back before anyone knows he was there." "That's suicide," Kane said, flat, final. "Maybe," Desba agreed. She didn't try to argue. "But it's the only chance. Send 3 men and all 3 die. Send 1 man who knows how to move quiet, who knows how to survive in wilderness." She shrugged. "Maybe he lives. Maybe I live. Maybe we all get out of this canyon alive." She turned to me, lowered her voice so only I could hear. Intimate, conspiratorial. "I'll draw you a map, landmarks, where to step, where not to step, where the creek runs, where the plant grows. You follow it exactly, stay quiet, stay smart, you might survive." "Might," a ghost of a smile. "I'm Apache, not God. I can't promise miracles. Only good odds and bad odds. This is bad odds that might get better if you're lucky." I looked at her leg. The swelling had spread. Her thigh looked twice its normal size now. Purple veins radiated from the bite site like lightning frozen in flesh, like her blood was turning to poison from the inside out. "How long do I have?" I asked. 90 minutes from the bite. Maybe 2 hours if you got enough venom out. After that," she shrugged again, "after that my leg dies. Necrosis sets in, then my organs start failing one by one. Then me. and nobody here knows this desert like I do. Your Captain Lawton is a good officer, smart, educated, but without a guide, without someone who knows where the water is, where the safe paths are, where Geronimo might be, she trailed off. Let me finish the thought. We'd wander until we died of thirst, or walked into an Apache ambush, or got lost and died slow. She was right. I knew she was right. I also knew that going alone into Apache territory with warriors watching the exact place I needed to go was probably going to get me killed. But that taste was still in my mouth. Venom and blood. Her blood. I'd put my mouth on a wound that was killing her, and I'd suck death out of her body. There was something about that act that changed things, made it impossible to just walk away, made it impossible to let her die when I'd already committed to saving her. I'd like to say I made a noble decision, that I chose to help her because it was the right thing to do, because it was moral or ethical or Christian or whatever word makes us feel good about ourselves. The truth was simpler and more selfish. I didn't want to die lost in a desert because I was too cowardly to save the woman who knew the way out. Draw the map, I said. She smiled. First time I'd seen that expression on her face. It changed everything, made her look younger, less like a warrior scout and more like a woman who'd seen too much and was surprised that anyone would help her carry the weight. She found a patch of dirt cleared of rocks, used a stick to scratch a map, drew the canyon walls, the spring, the western route, a small tributary canyon where the creek ran. She marked specific rocks, specific turns, made me repeat it back to her 3 times, testing my memory, making sure I understood. The plant looks like this, she said, pulling one of the cooking flowers from her bag. But red stems instead of green. Yellow flowers, same size. 5 petals. You'll know it by the smell. Like licorice and mud mixed together. Licorice and mud, got it. And Hartwell, I looked at her. If you see Apache, she paused, chose her words carefully. Don't fight, run. You can't beat them on their ground, on their terms. Your only advantage is surprise. The second they see you, that advantage is gone. So if they spot you, you run. You hear me, you run, and you don't stop until you're back here. Understood. I started climbing down. Halfway, she called out, Hartwell. I looked up. Why are you doing this, really? I thought about it, about my uncle, about 3 years of hatred that had burned in me like a coal fire that never went out, about the taste of her blood on my tongue, about the way she'd looked at me with those honey gold eyes and seen something in me that I hadn't known was there. I don't know, I said. That was a lie, I knew. I just didn't want to admit that saving her life had made her human to me. That putting my mouth on her wound had crossed some border inside myself. That once someone is human to you, once you've tasted their blood and fought for their life, you can't let them die. Not if you want to sleep at night. Not if you want to look at yourself in a mirror and recognize the face looking back. I reached the bottom. The men crowded around, all talking at once. Questions, concerns, opinions. You're really going alone? A young soldier asked. Couldn't have been more than 19, face still soft with youth. Probably lied about his age to enlist. They all did. Apparently. That's brave, Corporal. That's stupid, Kane corrected. He stepped close to me, lowered his voice so only I could hear. But his eyes held mine, hard, angry. She's playing you, Hartwell, sending you to your death. When you don't come back, she'll claim you got lost. Claim the Apache killed you. Meanwhile, she's bought time for Geronimo to move his camp, move his warriors, set up ambushes. This is a trick, the oldest trick in the book. Then I better not get lost, I said. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Sergeant. I understand that if she dies, we're all lost. I understand that you hate Apache. I understand that you have good reasons. But right now, in this moment, I have to choose between letting her die or trying to save her. And I'm choosing to try. Kane's jaw worked, muscles bunching, but he stepped back. Lawton handed me a full canteen. You'll need this. Thank you, sir. Corporal Hartwell. Yes, sir. If you're not back in 2 hours, we're coming for you, all of us. And God help any Apache who gets in our way. And if you find me dead, sir. He didn't answer that. Didn't need to. We both knew what finding me dead would mean. Would mean war. Would mean no more playing nice. Would mean every Apache in this territory became an enemy to be killed on sight. I checked my rifle, made sure it was loaded. 15 rounds. Checked my knife. Checked my canteen. Took a long drink, then slung it over my shoulder. The sun was lower now, maybe 2 hours of daylight left. After that, darkness would fall like a curtain, And the desert at night was a different world entirely. A world where predators hunted and mistakes killed. I started walking west. Behind me, I heard Kane say something to Lawton. Couldn't make out the words, but I knew the tone. Disgust, anger. The sound of a man watching someone make a mistake and being powerless to stop it. I didn't look back. The western canyon narrowed quickly. Rock walls pressed in on both sides, maybe 20 feet apart in places. My boots scuffed on stone. Too loud, way too loud. Every step echoed. Every sound announced my presence like a church bell ringing. I needed to move quieter. I stopped, unlaced my boots and took them off, tied them to my belt by the laces, continued in my wool socks. Better. Not silent, but better. The socks absorb sound. Let me feel the ground better. Let me place my feet more carefully. Montana training kicked in. My father's voice in my head. When you hunt, become part of the forest. Don't fight it. Flow with it. Step where animals step. Breathe when the wind breathes. Be patient. Different terrain here, not Montana pine forest, Arizona desert canyon, but the principle was the same. Become part of the landscape. Don't fight it. Desba's map played in my head. Follow the canyon west for 1 mile. Look for the red boulder shaped like a tooth. Turn north into the side canyon. Follow it uphill for another mile. The creek would be at the top. Simple in theory, except that every shadow could hide a warrior with a bow. Every sound could be a rifle cocking. Every step could trigger a rock slide that would alert sentries for miles. I moved as quietly as I could. Stayed close to the canyon wall where shadows gathered thick. Kept my head up, scanning constantly. Looking for movement. Looking for anything that didn't belong. Looking for the glint of sun on metal or the shape of a human form against rock. The first mile took me 30 minutes. Slow going, careful going, but I found the red boulder. It did look like a tooth, massive and curved, jutting from the canyon floor like something had tried to bite its way up from underground and frozen halfway through. I turned north. The side canyon was narrower, steeper. Loose rocks skittered under my feet no matter how careful I was. Each small sound seemed impossibly loud in the silence, like gunshots, like announcements of my presence. Sweat ran down my back. The air was cooler in the narrow passage. Shade blocked the direct sun, but my heart hammered hard enough to make me breathe fast. Fear sweat, the kind that smells sharp and sour, the kind that animals can smell from 100 yards away. I was halfway up the side canyon when I heard voices. I froze, pressed myself flat against the canyon wall, didn't breathe. Male voices, speaking Apache, low and casual, maybe 50 yards ahead, maybe less. Sound carried strange in canyons. Could be closer. I held my breath, counted heartbeats. 30, 40, 50. The voices continued. I couldn't understand the words, but I recognized the tone. Men talking, relaxed, not on alert, not on guard, just talking. Maybe telling stories, maybe complaining about being stuck on sentry duty, maybe talking about nothing at all. I waited. 5 minutes that felt like 5 hours. 10 minutes. Finally, the voices faded. Moving away or stopping, I couldn't tell which. I crept forward, inch by inch, testing each step before committing my weight. My rifle felt heavy in my hands, sweaty palms on the stock. The canyon opened up into a small basin, maybe 40 feet across, natural amphitheater carved by water over thousands of years. And there on the far side I saw it. Green, impossible green, and all this brown and red and tan. Trees, real trees, cottonwoods with leaves that rustled, grass, actual grass, and the silver flash of water moving over rocks. The creek, and sitting beside it 3 Apache warriors. My heart stopped. They'd built a small fire. Were roasting something over it. Rabbit from the smell. Their rifles leaned against a rock within easy reach. 3 Winchesters, probably taken from dead cavalry soldiers. The Apache were good at scavenging, good at turning enemy weapons against enemies. Their horses stood hobbled nearby. 3 paint ponies drinking from the creek. Beautiful animals, better suited to this terrain than cavalry horses would ever be. I couldn't go forward, couldn't reach the creek without being seen, without walking right into their camp. I crouched behind a boulder and watched. Waited, tried to think. The sun dropped lower. The warriors showed no sign of leaving. They finished their meal, kicked dirt over the fire, but they didn't mount up, didn't move out. Instead, they settled down. One pulled a blanket over himself, lay down using his saddle as a pillow. The others did the same. They were camping there for the night. I wanted to scream, wanted to curse, wanted to throw rocks in rage at the unfairness of it all. Instead, I stayed silent, stayed still, watched. In my head, I heard Desba's voice. 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. How long had it been since the bite? 40 minutes to climb down and prepare. 30 minutes for the first mile. Another 20 for the second. That was 90 minutes already. I was out of time. The warriors settled into sleep. One started snoring, a deep rhythmic sound that echoed off the rocks. The other two remained still. Not asleep, I thought, just resting. Eyes closed, but aware. 30 more minutes passed. The sun touched the western horizon. The sky turned gold, then orange, then red, like the land was bleeding into the heavens. The snoring continued. One of the other warriors shifted, rolled over, didn't wake. I made a decision. Probably a stupid one. Probably the kind of decision that gets men killed and written about in cautionary tales around campfires. But Desba was dying, and I'd put my mouth on her wound. And that meant something, even if I couldn't explain what. I began moving around the basin, wide circle, using every scrap of cover, every boulder, every shadow, every depression in the ground. Moving like my father had taught me to move when stalking elk in Montana mountains. It took me 20 minutes to get to the far side of the creek, upstream from where the warriors rested. My socks were shredded. I could feel blood making them slick. Didn't care. Would worry about infection later. If there was a later. The plant grew there, right where Desba said it would be. I recognized it from her description. Red stems, yellow flowers, 5 petals. And the smell when I got close, licorice and mud mixed together. Distinctive, unmistakable. I pulled up 6 plants, roots and all, like she'd instructed, tucked them carefully into my shirt. The stems scratched my chest through the fabric. The roots dripped dirt and creek water. That's when I stepped on the dry branch. Crack. The sound echoed across the basin like a rifle shot. Like thunder. Like the voice of God announcing judgment. The snoring stopped. I ran. Didn't think. Didn't plan. Didn't do anything except move. Sprinted back the way I'd come. Up the side canyon, legs pumping, arms swinging, the plants in my shirt bouncing against my chest. Behind me, shouts in Apache, the sound of men grabbing weapons, getting to their feet, confusion turning to action. A rifle cracked, the sound splitting the air. The bullet spanged off stone 3 feet to my left. Rock chips sprayed, one cut my cheek. I felt blood. I zigzagged. Another shot. Missed. Hit somewhere behind me. I hit the main canyon and turned east. Back toward the spring. Back toward my men. Back toward Desba. More shouts behind me. The sound of pursuit. Boots on stone. Or moccasins. Whatever they wore. Getting closer. I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life. Lungs burning like I'd swallowed fire. Vision narrowing to a tunnel. Dark spots dancing at the edges. The plants in my shirt scratched and bounced. Blood made my feet slick inside my socks. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered except running. The canyon blurred around me. My feet found purchase on instinct. Left, right, jump over that rock. Duck under that overhang. Don't think, just move. The sounds of pursuit began to fade. Not because I was faster, because they'd given up. Or because they knew the canyon would kill me for them. Or because they decided I wasn't worth the ammunition and effort. Or because they were flanking me, setting up an ambush ahead. I didn't slow down to find out. The red-toothed boulder appeared ahead. I was close, maybe half a mile from the spring, from safety, from Desba. I kept running even though my legs had turned to rubber, even though my breath came in ragged gasps that tasted like blood, even though dark spots were taking over my vision. But I didn't stop, couldn't stop. I rounded the final bend and saw the spring, saw our horses, saw 23 soldiers with rifles raised, saw Lawton step forward. "Hold fire," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "It's Hartwell." I stumbled into the clearing, fell to my knees, gasped for air that wouldn't come fast enough. My vision swam, everything tilted. Hands grabbed me, helped me up. Someone shoved a canteen at my face. I drank. Choked. Drank more. Water had never tasted so good. "Did you get it?" Lawton's voice, urgent. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Instead, I pulled the plants from my shirt, held them up with shaking hands. 3 had survived. 3 were crushed. But 3 was enough. "Good man," Lawton said, something like pride in his voice. Get up to her, now. I climbed. My legs didn't want to work, but I made them. Hand over hand, foot over foot, up the rocks to where Desba waited. She looked worse, much worse than when I'd left. Her face had gone gray, the color of old ashes. Her right leg was swollen to twice its normal size. The skin stretched tight and shiny, purple spreading like spilled ink. She could barely keep her eyes open. I handed her the plants. She took them with shaking hands, brought one to her nose, inhaled deeply. "Desert snakeweed," she whispered, her voice weak, thready. "You found it. You said licorice and mud. You were right." She smiled, weak but real. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I have no idea what to do with these." "I do." She pulled the roots off, put 3 roots in her mouth, began chewing. Her face twisted at the taste, but she kept chewing, working the roots between her teeth, finally swallowed. The effort visible, like swallowing stones. Then she crushed the rest of the plant between 2 rocks, made a paste, green and wet and pungent, untied the cloth around her thigh, the improvised tourniquet, and smeared the paste directly on the wound. The effect wasn't immediate, but after 5 minutes her breathing eased. The rapid, shallow gasps slowed, deepened. After 10 minutes some color returned to her face. Not healthy color, but better than the gray of impending death. After 15 minutes she looked at me and said, "I'll live." The relief that flooded through me was startling in its intensity. When had I started caring whether this woman lived or died? When had she stopped being the Apache and started being Desba? A person. A human being whose life mattered. Maybe when her blood touched my tongue. Maybe when I ran through an Apache gauntlet for plants I didn't know would work. Maybe when I saw her smile and realized she was just a woman trying to survive in a world that wanted her dead. I don't know. What I did know was that I'd crossed a line somewhere. Stepped over a border inside myself. The map I'd been following my whole life, the one that showed clear divisions between us and them, between enemy and friend, between hate and something else, that map had changed. The borders had moved, or maybe disappeared entirely. She saw it in my face. Whatever I was feeling, she saw it. Read it like she read tracks in the dust. "You came back," she said quietly. "You said I would." Most men wouldn't have. Most white men would have run, would have saved themselves, would have let the Apache woman die and told stories about how savage and primitive we are, how we can't be saved, how we deserve what we get. I'm not most men. She studied me for a long moment, those honey gold eyes seeing past the surface, seeing something deeper. Then she reached into a small pouch on her belt, pulled out something small, wrapped in soft leather. "Hold out your hand," she said. I did. She placed something in my palm, a small stone, turquoise, polished and smooth, warm from being against her body, the blue-green color of desert sky after rain. "Apache give these to people who save their lives," she explained, her voice still weak but steady. It means you carry a piece of my spirit now, and I carry a piece of yours. We're connected, bound together. What happens to me matters to you. What happens to you matters to me. It's not marriage, it's not family. It's something else, something older, something that transcends the divisions your people and my people have made." I stared at the stone. It caught the last rays of sunlight and seemed to glow from within. "I can't accept this," I said. "I just did what anyone would do." "No, you did what almost no one would do. You put your mouth on an Apache wound. You risked your life in Apache territory for an Apache woman. You saw me as human when everyone else sees me as other, as savage, as expendable." Her fingers closed my hand around the stone. "You already accepted it. The moment you sucked the venom, the moment you ran, the moment you came back. Now you're just making it official." Below us, Kane's voice carried up, harsh, angry. "What's she giving you, Corporal? 30 pieces of silver payment for betraying your own kind?" I ignored him, closed my fist around the stone, felt its weight, felt its warmth. Desba leaned back against the rock, exhausted. The effort of speaking, of performing the small ceremony, had drained what little energy she had left. "We need to talk. There are things you need to know. Things I haven't told the captain. Things that will change everything." Can it wait until morning? You need rest." "No, Omar." She looked at me with those honey gold eyes, and I saw something in them that made my stomach drop. Guilt and fear and determination. The look of someone about to confess something terrible. "It can't wait, because tomorrow might be too late. Tomorrow Geronimo might move his camp. Tomorrow everything might change. What is it? I asked. She took a breath, let it out slow, like she was preparing for battle. I lied, she said. About Geronimo, about where he is, about how close he is, about all of it. The world seemed to tilt sideways. What? He's not 2 miles northeast like I've been telling your captain. That was a lie, a necessary lie, but a lie nonetheless. Then we're 10 miles north, in the mountains. But that's not the important part. That's not what I need to tell you. She grabbed my hand, held it tight, her fingers cold despite the heat. Hartwell, listen, I need to tell you why I lied. I need to tell you the truth. And then I need you to help me. Because if you don't, a little girl is going to die, an 8-year-old child, and it will be my fault, and I won't be able to live with that. I stared at her, the pieces starting to come together in my head, Kane's voice echoing. She's playing you, sending you to your death. Maybe he'd been right all along, or maybe the truth was more complicated than hatred allowed. Either way, I knew one thing for certain. The real expedition was just beginning, and this time the map led into territory no cartographer had ever charted, the human heart. The stars came out while Desba told me the truth. We sat on that boulder in the growing darkness, her legs still swollen and poisoned. Despite the medicine, my mind reeling from everything she was saying, from 3 words that changed everything. I lied. Below us, the soldiers had made camp for the night. Small fires flickered against the canyon walls. The smell of coffee and hardtack drifted up on the evening air. Normal sounds, comforting sounds, men talking in low voices, horses shifting and snorting, the clink of tin cups and the scrape of spoons on mess kits, the ordinary rituals that made war feel almost human. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. Her name is Nita, Desba said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper, like speaking the name too loud might hurt. She's 8 years old, black hair like mine, eyes like her father's, brown not gold. She laughs when it rains because she says the sky is telling jokes. She likes to collect smooth stones from the creek. She can name 30 different plants and tell you which ones heal and which ones kill. She wants to be a medicine woman when she grows up. If she grows up. She stared out at the darkness beyond our camp. Her hands trembled slightly, from the venom still working through her system or from fear I couldn't tell. Maybe both. 3 months ago, Geronimo came to our camp, the reservation camp where the army makes us live, where we're supposed to be civilized. The bitterness in her voice could have stripped paint from wood. He came at night, always at night. That's when Apache do their most important work, when the white soldiers are asleep, when guards are tired and inattentive. He came with 4 warriors, took Nita from her bed. She was sleeping, didn't even scream, just gone, like a ghost had taken her. I felt my throat tighten, couldn't speak, could barely breathe. He left a message with the headman, with Chief Cochise's nephew, said if I continue working for the cavalry, if I lead white soldiers to Apache hideouts, if I betray my people one more time. She paused, swallowed hard. He'll send her back to me in pieces, one piece at a time, starting with her fingers. Christ, I whispered. So I've been lying for 3 months, leading your captain and his men in circles, telling him Geronimo is close, always close, keeping him hopeful, keeping the expedition moving, but making sure we never actually find him, never get close enough for a fight. Because if we do, if there's a battle, if the army attacks, she didn't finish, didn't need to. Geronimo kills your daughter. Yes, or uses her as a shield, or bargaining chip, or just kills her out of spite because that's what he does. He's lost everything, his family, his land, his way of life. He has nothing left but rage and the ability to hurt people. And my daughter is his leverage, his insurance policy, his way of keeping me under control. Why didn't you tell Lawton? Why didn't you tell anyone? She laughed. No humor in it, just empty sound, hollow, dead. Tell him what? That the great Geronimo has my daughter. You think the army cares about one Apache child? Do you think they see her as human, as worth saving? Or do you think they see her as leverage, as bait to draw Geronimo out into the open? I wanted to argue, wanted to say she was wrong, wanted to defend the army I served, but I couldn't, because she was probably right. They'd use her, I said. They'd use her. And Geronimo would know. He always knows. He has spies everywhere, on the reservations, in the towns, even in the army sometimes Apache scouts who still feed him information. He'd know the second I told your captain, and he'd kill her. just to prove a point, just to show that he can't be manipulated, that he's still in control, that he's still Geronimo. So you've been protecting her by lying to us, by leading you slow, by keeping you alive, actually. If I really wanted you dead, I'd have led you into 3 different ambushes by now. There are places in these canyons where Geronimo's warriors wait, where the rocks funnel you into killing grounds, where you can't escape. I've steered you away from all of them, kept you safe, while buying time for what I don't even know, hope miracle. A chance that something would change. She turned to look at me, those eyes shining with unshed tears that she refused to let fall. Apache women didn't cry, not in front of anyone, especially not in front of white men. Until today, she continued. Until the snake, until you saved me, and now I owe you. And Apache take debts seriously, more seriously than your people can understand. So I'm telling you the truth, and I'm asking for your help, even though I have no right, even though you could turn me into your captain right now and I'd be arrested, maybe hanged for treason. The weight of it settled on my shoulders like a pack full of stones, crushing, inescapable. She was right, I could report her. Should report her. My duty as a soldier was clear. She'd been lying to the army, leading us astray, potentially endangering the mission. But my duty as a human being was murkier, more complicated. Where is he really? I asked. Geronimo. Desba pointed north, into the darkness where the canyon walls rose like the walls of a fortress. 10 miles in the Dragoon Mountains. There's a box canyon, hidden, only 3 ways and all narrow, easy to defend, natural fortress. He has maybe 30 warriors there, plus women and children. 60 people total maybe. And Nita, my Nita, somewhere in that camp. I don't know where exactly. Don't know which wiki up. Don't know who's guarding her. Just know she's there. Alive, for now. How do you know she's still alive? Because 2 weeks ago he sent me proof. She reached into her shirt, pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth, unwrapped it slowly, like unwrapping something holy or terrible. This, she held it out to me. A child's bracelet, woven from grass and colored thread red and yellow and blue. Simple, crude, the kind of thing a child makes with their hands when they're learning, small enough for an 8-year-old wrist. She made this when she was 6, Desba said, her voice cracking for the first time. Before her father died, before the world went to hell, before Geronimo took her, she wore it every day, said it brought her luck, said her father's spirit lived in the threads. She touched the bracelet with one finger, gentle, like it might break. 2 weeks ago, a boy from the reservation found this tied to a cactus near the boundary line, the place where reservation land meets free territory, with a message carved into a piece of bark. Your daughter remembers you, for now. I took the bracelet. It weighed nothing in my hand, felt like it weighed everything. The threads were faded, worn, loved. What do you want from me? I asked, even though I already knew. She met my eyes. I want you to help me get her back. How we're 23 men against 30 warriors in a fortress. Even if we could win a straight fight, which we can't, they'd kill her the second we attacked. Use her as a shield, or kill her to hurt us, to hurt me. I know, that's why we can't attack. Can't use force. She took a breath. We have to go in quiet, secret, you and me, before the army moves, before Geronimo knows we're coming. That's insane. Probably. But it's all I have. It's the only plan that might work. She gripped my hand tighter, her fingers cold despite the warmth. Hartwell, I can't ask you to do this. I know that. I have no right, no claim on you except one day and one bite and one debt. But I'm asking anyway, because you're the only person in this whole damn territory who looked at me and saw a mother. Not just a scout, not just an Apache, not just a savage or a traitor or a tool. You saw a mother trying to save her child. And that's rare. Rarer than you know. The stars reflected in her eyes made them look like they held entire galaxies, entire universes of pain and hope. I thought about my own mother, dead when I was 12. Fever took her in the winter of '74. Killed her in 3 days despite everything the doctor tried. I remembered the way my father had wept, the only time I ever saw him cry. Great racking sobs that shook his whole body. He'd held her hand while she died. Whispered things to her that I couldn't hear, things meant only for her. I remembered thinking, that's what love looks like. That's what it means to lose someone you'd die for. Desba had that look now, that willingness to die, that desperate love that would burn the world down to save one person. And I realized something. This wasn't about the army or Geronimo or even about right and wrong or duty, or any of the other words we use to make ourselves feel better about the choices we make. This was about whether I was the kind of man who could walk away from a mother trying to save her daughter, whether I could look at that bracelet and that desperation and that love and say, not my problem, whether I could sleep at night if I did. If I do this, I said slowly, each word careful, measured, and we survive, and we get her back. You tell Lawton the truth, all of it, where Geronimo really is. No more lies, no more protecting him. Yes, I promise. And you tell him it was my idea, that I forced you, that you had no choice. No. Yes, because Kane's right about one thing, you're valuable. The Army needs Apache scouts. There aren't many who'll work with us, who know the land and can speak English and can be trusted even a little bit. But me, I'm just a cartographer. Expendable. There's a dozen men who can do what I do. If someone has to take the blame for this mess, better it's me than you. She was quiet for a long time, just staring at me, like she was seeing me for the first time. Really seeing me. Why would you do that? She whispered. I pulled the turquoise stone from my pocket, the one she'd given me, held it up to the starlight. It glowed faintly, like it held its own light. You said this means we're connected, that we carry pieces of each other's spirits. I didn't believe that before. Thought it was just Apache superstition. But I do now, I believe it. Because something changed when I put my mouth on your wound. Something fundamental. And I can't walk away from that. Can't walk away from you. From her. Hartwell, when's the best time to do this? When can we move? She wiped her eyes, quick, trying to hide it. But I saw. Tonight, now, Geronimo's camp is 10 miles north. If we leave now, move through the dark, we can reach it by dawn. Sun rises at 5:30. We want to arrive just before that, when the sentries are tired, when people are still sleeping, when we have the best chance, Weave. I'm coming with you. Your leg. My leg will hold, it has to. She stood carefully, tested her weight, grimaced but stayed upright. The swelling had gone down some, the medicine working, but she still favored it, still moved stiff. Besides, you need me. You don't speak Apache, don't know the signals, don't know which path to take through the mountains, don't know where the sentries post, don't know which wiki-up might be hers. You need me as much as I need you. She was right, I hated that she was right, but she was. How do we get past Lawton, past the camp guards, past Kane? Same way Apache have been sneaking past cavalry for 200 years. Quietly, carefully, patiently. We moved back down to camp. The fires had burned down to embers now, red coals glowing in the darkness. Men snored in their bedrolls. A few kept watch, but they faced outward, watching for threats from beyond, watching the darkness beyond the firelight. They didn't expect threats from within. Desba and I gathered our supplies with painful slowness. My rifle, her knife and bow, 2 canteens full, some hardtack wrapped in cloth. I left my boots, would move in my shredded socks until we were clear. She already wore her moccasins. We slipped between sleeping soldiers like shadows between stars, like ghosts, like smoke. We were 50 yards from camp when someone called out, "Corporal, that you?" I froze, turned slowly. Sergeant Kane stood by the picket line where the horses were tied. He'd been checking them, making in his rounds, and now he stared at us across the darkness, his hand on his rifle. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice low but hard, suspicious. I could lie, could say we were scouting ahead, could say Desba needed to check something, could say 100 things, but Kane would know. He always knew. He'd survived this long by knowing when men were lying. "I'm taking Miss Redstone north," I said. Steady voice, clear. "On a reconnaissance mission." "Like hell you are." Kane strode toward us, his rifle not quite raised but ready. "You're deserting, both of you, running off into the night like cowards, like traitors." "No, sir, I'm following a lead." "You're following that Apache straight to Geronimo so she can warn him we're coming. So she can tell him our strength and our plans and our weaknesses." I knew it. I knew you'd turn traitor. I saw it when you put your mouth on her wound. Saw it when you ran into Apache territory for her plants. Saw it in your eyes. You've gone native, Corporal. You've crossed over, and I can't let that happen. Kane raised his rifle, not aiming at us, not yet, but close, his finger on the trigger guard. "I'm placing you both under arrest. Military custody. The captain will..." Desba moved. 1 second she was beside me. The next she was behind Kane with her knife at his throat. The blade pressed against his skin. Not cutting, not yet, but the threat clear. Drop the rifle, she said softly, calmly, like she was asking him to pass the salt. Kane went rigid, every muscle locked. You're proving me right, Apache, proving everything I said about your kind. I'm saving your life, stupid man. Her voice remained calm, reasonable. You shoot, you wake the camp. You wake the camp, everyone starts shooting. All that noise echoes through these canyons. And Geronimo has warriors out there, listening, watching, waiting. You fire that rifle, they know exactly where 23 sleeping soldiers are. They know how many. They know where, and they'll attack. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. But they'll attack, and good men will die. Men with families back east. Men with mothers and wives and children waiting for them. You want that on your soul, Sergeant. Kane's jaw clenched, muscles bunched in his neck. But he lowered the rifle slowly, carefully. Good, Desba said. She removed the knife from his throat, stepped back, put distance between them. Now you listen. You listen good because I'm only saying this once. My daughter's 8 years old. Her name is Nita. Geronimo has had her for 3 months. Took her from her bed at night, uses her to control me. To keep me from telling your army where he really is. That's why I've been leading you slow. Not because I'm a traitor, because I'm a mother trying to keep my child alive. You understand that, Sergeant? Kane stared at her. I saw something shift in his face. Not acceptance, not forgiveness, but maybe understanding. The hard lines around his eyes softened slightly. His shoulders dropped half an inch. Your daughter, he repeated. Processing. My daughter, 8 years old. Corporal Hartwell is helping me save her. Not because I seduced him. Not because he's a traitor to white people, or the Army or America. Because he's a better man than you. Because he looked at me and saw a human being, saw a mother, and he decided that was more important than regulations or prejudice or 3 years of hate. Kane looked at me, really looked, like he was seeing me for the first time. How long have you known? About an hour, I said. She just told me, after I got back with the medicine plant. And you believe her? Yes. Why, because I thought about it, about the bracelet, about the way her voice cracked when she said her daughter's name, about the desperation in her eyes. Because no one could fake that kind of pain, that kind of fear, that kind of love. Oh, Kane was quiet for a long moment. The night sounds filled the silence. Crickets, the distant call of a night bird, the soft snorting of horses. Then he did something that surprised me. He held out his rifle. Take it. You'll need it more than me. I took the weapon, felt its weight. You're not going to stop us. I should. Everything in me says I should. Should arrest you both. Wake the captain. Let him sort this mess out. He looked at Desba, his face unreadable. But I have a daughter back in Ohio. She's 10 now. Haven't seen her in 3 years. 3 years of chasing hostile Indians across Arizona while she grows up without me. Her name is Sarah. She has blonde hair like her mother, blue eyes. She likes to draw pictures and send them to me. I carry one in my pocket. He pulled it out. A child's drawing, stick figures, a house, a tree, a sun. When I think about someone taking her, using her as leverage, threatening to hurt her. He trailed off, couldn't finish. His hand was shaking, just slightly, just enough to see. I'd burn the world down to get her back, he said quietly. Would kill anyone who stood in my way. Would betray my uniform and my country and my God if that's what it took. I suppose you have the same right. Any parent would. Desba touched his arm. Brief, gentle. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're probably both going to die out there. Geronimo's not stupid. He'll have sentries, guards. You walk into that camp, you're walking into a trap. I know, Desba said, but I have to try and have to do something. Can't just wait and hope anymore. Kane looked at me. If you survive this, Corporal, when you get back, you tell the captain I tried to stop you. Tell him you knocked me out. Tell him I never saw it coming. Show him this. He handed me his knife, the handle worn smooth from years of use. Hit me with the pommel. Make it look real. Make it convincing. I can't. You can and you will, because if Lawton thinks I let you go, I'll hang for dereliction of duty. But if he thinks you overpowered me, snuck up on me in the dark and hit me from behind, then I just look incompetent. Maybe get demoted, maybe lose some pay, but I won't hang. I can live with incompetent. I can't live with hanging. I took the knife, felt sick. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just bring that child home. Bring her back to her mother. That's all the payment I need. I hit him, not hard enough to cause real damage, not hard enough to crack his skull or scramble his brains, but hard enough to split his scalp and knock him down, hard enough to make it look convincing. He fell, lay still in the dirt. Blood ran down his face from the scalp wound. Scalp wounds always bled a lot, made things look worse than they were. Was that necessary? Desba asked quietly. Yes, now let's move before I lose my nerve, before someone else wakes up, before I start thinking about all the ways this can go wrong. We ran north, left the camp behind, left the sleeping soldiers and the dying fires in the illusion of safety, left the world we knew for the world we didn't. The canyon walls rose on either side, black against the stars, darker than dark. We moved through shadows so complete I couldn't see my own hands when I held them up. But Desba could. She led. I followed. Trusted her completely. Put my life in her hands the way she'd put hers in mine when I sucked the venom. We climbed out of Skeleton Canyon and into the foothills of the Dragoon Mountains. The terrain changed. More rocks, more elevation. The air grew cooler as we climbed, thinner, harder to breathe. We moved in silence for 2 hours. No talking, no unnecessary sound, just the soft pad of moccasins and socked feet on stone, the occasional rattle of loose rock, the sound of our own breathing. Then Desba stopped, raised her hand. I froze. We rest here, she whispered. 10 minutes. Drink water. Catch our breath. I collapsed against a boulder. My feet were shredded worse now. I could feel blood squelching in my socks with every step. Would probably lose a few toenails. Might get infection. Didn't care. Would deal with it later. Desba sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched, close enough that I could feel her warmth, could hear her breathing. You didn't have to do this, she said softly. I know. When Kane asked where we were going, you could have lied better. Could have convinced him. Could have let me go alone and stayed behind safe with your men. I know that too. So why risk everything for an Apache child you've never met, for a woman you barely know? I thought about it, about my uncle, about 3 years of hatred, about the taste of venom and blood on my tongue, about a small bracelet woven by a child who just wanted her mother. Because somewhere along the way, I said slowly, you stopped being the enemy. And I stopped being a soldier. And we just became two people trying to do the right thing in a world that doesn't always make it easy, that doesn't always reward it, that doesn't always even recognize it. She leaned her head against my shoulder, just for a moment, just long enough for me to feel the weight of her trust, the weight of her hope. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when we have Nita, when we're all safe, when this is over. If it's ever over, it will be, one way or another. We moved on. The 10 miles felt like 100. We climbed ridges that scraped the sky and descended into arroyos where the darkness was absolute. We crossed dry creek beds filled with smooth stones that clicked under our feet no matter how carefully we stepped. We squeezed through gaps between boulders where the rock walls pressed so close I could touch both sides at once, always moving north, always climbing higher into the Dragoon Mountains. The stars wheeled overhead. The Big Dipper rotated slowly around Polaris. Time measured in aching muscles and burning lungs, and the slow progress of constellations across the sky. As we climbed, Desba told me about Nita. She was born during a storm, Desba said softly as we picked our way across a scree field. Thunder and lightning like the sky was tearing itself apart. The medicine woman said it was a sign, said she would be strong, fierce, a warrior spirit in a small body. Was she right? In some ways, Nita's not afraid of anything. When she was 5, she found a rattlesnake in our wickiup. Most children would scream, run. She just stood there watching it, studying it. When I came in and saw her standing so close, my heart stopped. But she looked at me and said, Mama, he's beautiful. Look at his pattern. Like she was admiring art instead of facing death. I could hear the smile in her voice, the love. Her father taught her that, Desba continued. Taught her to see beauty everywhere. Even in dangerous things, even in enemies. He said the world had enough fear. What it needed was people who could see past the fear to what was real underneath. What was his name, your husband? Dakota. It means friend to everyone in our language. And he was. He could talk to anyone, make anyone smile, even white soldiers who hated us. He'd find common ground, find something to laugh about. He believed peace was possible. Believed your people and my people could live together. Share the land instead of fighting over it. What happened to him? Her voice went flat, cold. Geronimo happened 3 years ago, before the latest uprising, before the worst of the fighting. Dakota wanted to stay on the reservation, wanted to farm, raise cattle maybe, learn to live the white way since the Apache way was dying. He'd go to the reservation office, talk to the agent about getting tools, seeds, a small plot of land. She paused. I heard her breathing change, heard old pain resurface. Geronimo called him a traitor, called him white heart, said he was betraying his people by accepting reservation life, by cooperating with the army. Dakota tried to explain, tried to say that survival was more important than pride, that keeping our children alive was more important than keeping our traditions pure. Geronimo didn't agree. Geronimo killed him, came to our camp one night with 4 warriors, dragged Dakota out of our wickiup, made me watch, made Nita watch. She was 5 years old. 5. And she had to watch her father die because he wanted peace. I felt my throat close, couldn't speak. They beat him first, then stabbed him, left him bleeding in the dirt. Took 3 hours for him to die. 3 hours of pain. The medicine woman tried to help, but they wouldn't let her near. Said he didn't deserve healing, didn't deserve mercy, just death. Jesus Christ. So I defected the next day. Took Nita and went to Fort Bowie. Offered to scout for the army. Not because I love white people, not because I think you're better than us, because I hate Geronimo more, because he took my husband, and then he took my daughter, and I want him stopped, want him caught, want him locked away where he can never hurt anyone else ever again. But you can't help catch him while he has Nita. No, can't risk her, can't do anything that might make him hurt her. She stopped walking, turned to look at me in the starlight. That's why I need you, why I need this plan to work. Because if it doesn't, if we fail, then I've lost everything. Husband, daughter, hope, everything that matters. I touched her shoulder, brief, trying to offer comfort I didn't know how to give. We won't fail. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll die trying, that I won't stop, won't quit, won't leave her there. She touched my hand where it rested on her shoulder. I believe you. We kept walking, the hours blurred together. My feet went numb, then started hurting, then went numb again. The pain became background noise, something happening to someone else's body. Desba limped worse as the night wore on. The medicine was wearing off, the venom still in her system, but she didn't complain, didn't ask to stop, just kept moving with grim determination. Around 3 a.m, judging by the stars, we crossed a ridge, and I saw lights in the distance. Tiny pinpricks of orange in the vast darkness. Campfires, maybe 5 miles away. There, Desba breathed, Geronimo's camp. We descended the ridge carefully, slowly. The terrain here was treacherous. Loose rock, hidden drop-offs. One wrong step and we'd fall. Break a leg, end the rescue before it started. We reached a flatter area, a natural terrace carved into the mountainside. Desba led me to a cluster of boulders where we could hide and rest. We wait here until first light, she said. Another 2 hours. Let the sentries get tired. Let people sleep deep. Then we move. I nodded, didn't trust my voice. We sat with our backs against the rock. The stones still held warmth from yesterday's sun. I closed my eyes. Didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. But rested. Let my body recover what it could. Hartwell. Yeah. What will you do after this? After the army? After Arizona? I thought about it. About Montana. About mountains covered in pine trees instead of desert scrub. About rivers that ran year-round instead of dry creek beds. About snow and cold instead of heat and dust. Go home, I guess. Back to Montana. Maybe teach cartography at a school. Maybe just hunt and fish and live quiet. I've had enough of adventure to last a lifetime. Will you marry, have children? Maybe, if I find the right woman. Someone who doesn't mind a man who's seen too much and talks too little. You'd be a good father. How do you know? Because you're doing this. For a child you've never met. Because that's the kind of man you are. The kind who sees people as people. Who helps because it's right. Not because there's something in it for him. What about you, I asked. After this, if we succeed, what will you do? Stay on the reservation. Raise Nita. Teach her to read and write English so she can survive in the world that's coming. The world where Apache have to live alongside whites whether we want to or not. She paused. Maybe teach other children too. Start a school. Help them learn to navigate between two worlds. Apache and white. Keep enough of our traditions that we remember who we are, but learn enough of your ways that we don't disappear entirely. That sounds good. Important. It's necessary. Our old ways are dying. The buffalo are gone. The open land is gone. We can rage against it. Fight it like Geronimo. Die fighting. Or we can adapt, change, survive. I choose survival. For Nita. For all the children. The sky began to lighten in the east. Not sunrise yet, but the darkness thinning, becoming gray instead of black. Dawn was coming. It's time, Desba said. We stood. My legs protested, stiff from sitting, from miles of walking. But they held. We climbed one final ridge, belly crawled the last 20 yards to the top. Looked down. The box canyon spread below us, maybe 100 yards wide at the opening, 300 yards deep. Sheer cliffs on three sides rising 50, 60 feet. Only one main entrance at the southern end where the walls opened. Narrow, easy to defend, a perfect natural fortress. In the canyon floor, I counted structures, not tippies, wickiups, dome-shaped shelters made of branches and hide, and whatever materials they could scavenge. 20 of them, maybe more. Hard to tell in the pre-dawn light. Smoke rose from a few fires, not many. They were being careful, conserving wood, not advertising their position. Horses stood in a crude corral near the north wall. 30 animals, maybe? Good horses. Stolen from ranches and cavalry patrols, probably. I could see people moving. A few early risers, women starting breakfast fires, men checking weapons. The rhythms of camp life beginning as the day woke up. There, Desba breathed. She pointed to a wickiup on the eastern side, smaller than the others, set apart. A guard sat outside it, armed with a rifle. Even from here, I could see he was alert, awake, watching. That's where they're keeping her, I asked. That's where they keep prisoners, hostages, people they don't trust. Her voice cracked slightly. My baby's in there, in the dark, scared, alone. Where's Geronimo? The largest wickiup, center of the camp. See the one with the red blanket at the entrance. I saw it, bigger than the others, more substantial, the dwelling of a leader. Okay, I said. Walk me through the plan one more time. Desba took a breath, focused. You go to the main entrance. Walk in under white flag. Ask to speak with Geronimo. Tell him you want to negotiate, surrender terms. Whatever sounds believable. While everyone's focused on you, all the warriors, all the attention on the crazy white soldier who walked into their camp, I climbed down the cliff on the east side. She pointed. There, that crack in the rock. It's steep but climbable. I've done it before, years ago. I come down behind the wickiup. Get to Nita. Get her out. We climb back up and disappear while you're still talking. What if the guard won't move, won't let you pass? She pulled her knife. Didn't need to answer. The blade said everything. Desba, I won't kill unless I have to, but if it's between that guard and my daughter, she met my eyes. I choose my daughter. Every time. No hesitation. I understood. Hated it, but understood. What if Geronimo doesn't want to talk? What if he just shoots me the second I walk in? He won't. He's curious. Always has been. He'll want to know why you came, what you want, how you found him. He'll talk, at least for a few minutes. That's all I need. 5 minutes, maybe 10. And if something goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, she grabbed my face with both hands, pulled me close, kissed me hard, not romantic, not sexual, just desperate, human. Two people who might die and wanted one moment of connection before the end. She pulled back. It won't go wrong. It can't. Too much depends on it. Now go. Sun's almost up. We need to move while the light is still dim, while people are still waking up, still groggy. I started down the ridge, toward the main entrance, toward Geronimo. Behind me, Desba began her descent on the eastern side, moving like a shadow, like a ghost, like a mother who would tear the world apart to save her child. The sun broke over the horizon as I reached the canyon entrance. Golden light flooded the box canyon, made everything look new, clean, like the world was being born, or like it was about to end. I took off my blue kerchief, the one I wore around my neck to keep dust out, tied it to the end of Kane's rifle. A white flag, not really white, more blue-gray from dirt and sweat and months of use, but close enough. the universal signal for parley, for negotiation, for don't shoot me, I come in peace. Then I walked into Geronimo's camp. Warriors saw me immediately, shouts in Apache, sharp, urgent. Rifles came up, bows were drawn, at least 10 men moving toward me, surrounding me. I kept walking, hands visible, rifle held high with the makeshift flag, heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. An old warrior stepped forward, maybe 60 years old, face like weathered leather, deep lines carved by decades of sun and wind and war. He wore traditional Apache clothing and a bandolier of ammunition across his chest. His rifle, a Winchester like mine, was pointed at my chest. He spoke in English, accented but clear. "Why you come here, white man, you lost stupid crazy?" "I come to speak with Geronimo, to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "Peace, surrender, the end of this war." The old warrior laughed, not a happy sound, more like a cough, like finding humor in tragedy. "Geronimo don't surrender to whites, never has, never will. Then he'll die, and all of you with him. The army is coming, 500 soldiers, maybe more. This expedition you've been tracking, Captain Lawton's men, that's just the vanguard, the advanced scouts. The main force is 3 days behind. They're going to find this canyon. They're going to surround it, and they're going to kill everyone inside. Women, children, everyone." More warriors gathered now, 30, 40, all armed, all watching me. I was one rifle and one lie away from death. The old warrior studied me. "You lie. Maybe, maybe not. But are you willing to risk it? Are you willing to bet the lives of every person in this camp that I'm lying?" Movement behind the warriors. The red blanket at the large wickiup moved aside. Geronimo stepped out. I'd seen photographs, daguerreotypes in newspapers back east, artists' renderings, descriptions from soldiers who'd seen him from a distance. But nothing prepared me for the reality of the man. He was shorter than I expected, maybe 5'7", stocky, powerful build despite being in his 50s, but he carried himself like he was 10 feet tall, like gravity worked differently for him. His face was hard, scarred, lined, eyes like black stones that had seen everything and been surprised by nothing. This was the man who'd led the Apache resistance for decades, who'd fought Mexican armies and American armies and survived both, who'd become a legend and a nightmare, who'd killed hundreds, maybe thousands, and lost just as many of his own people. And I was about to lie to his face. He walked toward me, slow, deliberate. Every warrior in that camp watched, waiting, following his lead. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the scars on his face, close enough that I could smell smoke and leather and something else, something indefinable. He spoke. His English was better than the old warriors. Almost no accent. "You are brave or stupid." "Which?" "Probably both," I said. He almost smiled. The corner of his mouth twitched. "I like honest men, even when they are my enemies. Why you come here? To offer you a choice. Surrender with honor. Go to the reservation. Live. Or stay here and die when the army comes. I choose neither." "Then you choose death for your people, not just warriors, everyone. The army doesn't discriminate anymore. Doesn't separate combatants from non-combatants. They'll kill everyone they find here. Call it justice. Call it necessity. Call it whatever makes them sleep at night. Let them try." But I saw something in his eyes, doubt, fatigue, the weight of too many years fighting, too many people lost. Or I continued, keeping my voice steady despite my heart trying to escape my chest. "You surrender, you and your warriors, you'll be treated with respect, sent to a reservation, given food, shelter. Your people will live. Your children will live. Isn't that worth more than pride, more than revenge? Reservation is slow death, prison with different walls. We starve there, sicken there, die there anyway, just slower, more humiliating. Prison with walls is better than graves in the desert. At least in prison there's hope. Hope that things change, that treaties get better, that your people survive to see another generation. In graves, there's nothing, just silence." He studied me for a long moment, those black stone eyes searching my face, looking for lies, looking for weakness, looking for whatever he needed to see to make his decision. "You are not like other soldiers," he said finally. "You think different." "Why, Brian?" "Because I've seen enough death. I'm tired of it. Tired of killing. Tired of burying good men. Tired of this war that never ends. I want it to stop. I want everyone to go home. I want children to grow up without learning to shoot before they learn to read. Something passed between us then. Not understanding exactly. Not friendship. Not trust. Just two men who'd seen war and were sick of it. Two men who wanted it to end, but didn't know how to make it stop without looking weak. I will think on your words, Geronimo said. You will wait. You will not move. You will not try anything. My warriors will watch you. If you move wrong, they will kill you. Understand? I understand. He turned and walked back to his wickiup. The red blanket fell close behind him. The warriors didn't lower their weapons, but they didn't shoot either. They formed a loose circle around me, watching, waiting. I stood in the center of that camp surrounded by enemies and prayed that Desba was fast, prayed that she'd find Nita, prayed that we'd both survive to see the sunset. The minutes crawled, each one felt like an hour. I counted heartbeats, counted breaths, counted the number of rifles pointed at me, 15, maybe 20. Hard to keep track when your life hangs by a thread. The camp continued waking up. Women emerged from wickiups, children too, little ones who stared at me with huge eyes, who'd probably never seen a white soldier up close before, who'd heard stories about blue coats who killed Indians, who ate children, who were monsters. I probably looked like a monster to them, dirty, bloody, exhausted, standing in their camp with a rifle and a lie and desperation written all over my face. The old warrior I'd learned later his name was Naichi Geronimo's cousin stayed close, watching me with eyes that had seen too much. You want water? He asked after maybe 10 minutes. Yes, thank you. He brought me a gourd dipper. The water was cool, clean. I drank slowly, savored it, returned the dipper with a nod. You are the one who saved Desba, he said. Not a question, a statement. You know about that? Our scouts saw. They watched you run through the canyon yesterday. Saw you get the medicine plant. They could have killed you, chose not to. He paused. They chose not to because you saved one of ours. Even though she works for your army. Even though she leads white soldiers toward our camps. You saved her. That matters. She's trying to save her daughter. Naichi's face hardened. We know. That is why Geronimo took the child. To keep Desba from betraying us completely. To keep some control, some leverage. She's already betrayed you. Betray us if she really wanted us dead? We betray us if she really wanted us dead. We would all be corpses by now. She knows where every camp is, knows where every warrior sleeps, knows our weaknesses, could have led you to us 3 months ago. But she didn't. She protected us while trying to protect her child. Her loyalty is complicated, like most things in war. I didn't know what to say to that. Tell me about your family, Nietzsche said suddenly. You have wife, children. No wife, no children. My father was a hunter in Montana Territory, taught me to read the land, to survive in wilderness. My mother died when I was 12. Fever took her. No children. That is sad. A man should have children. Should know what it means to protect something more important than himself. Should know what it means to love something so much you would die for it, kill for it, betray everything you believe in for it. Is that what Geronimo fights for his children? Geronimo fights because he cannot stop. Because stopping means admitting we lost. That our land is gone. Our way of life is finished. Our people are dying. Naichi looks sad, old, tired. But yes, he also fights for children. So they remember who they were, who their grandfathers were, before the whites came, before everything changed. I wanted to argue, to defend my people, to say we had rights too, had reasons, had justifications. But standing in that camp seeing Apache children, playing women, working men, maintaining weapons, and trying to preserve some fragment of the life they'd known, I saw what we'd taken. Not just land, not just resources, but a whole world, a whole way of being, centuries of tradition and culture and identity. And suddenly the map in my head, the one that showed United States territory and Apache territory, with clear borders and obvious divisions, seemed like a lie, like propaganda, like something we told ourselves so we could sleep at night after taking what wasn't ours. You can't draw borders on belonging, can't map out who deserves to exist, can't measure in acres and miles the value of a people's home. Movement caught my eye, near the eastern wickiup where the guard sat. A shadow moving along the cliff base, quick, low, Desba. My heart jumped. I forced myself to look away, to not draw attention to that side of the camp, to keep all eyes on me. Your heart beats fast, Naichi observed. You are afraid, man. Yes. Good. Fear keeps men alive. Arrogance kills them. Better to be afraid and careful than confident and dead. The guard at the wickiup stood, stretched, walked 10 paces away to relieve himself behind a rock. The morning routine of a sentry who'd been on duty all night. Desba appeared at the entrance to the wickiup, slipped inside, silent, invisible to everyone but me. My mouth went dry. How long did she need? 2 minutes 5. How long before the guard came back? How long before someone else noticed? Seconds ticked by like hours. Then I heard it. A child's scream, high, terrified, piercing, from the wickiup with the guard. Every head in camp turned. The guard rushed back, shouted something in Apache, pulled his rifle. Desba burst from the wickiup carrying a small girl. The child fought, screamed, didn't recognize her own mother. Too young when taken. Too scared now. 3 months of captivity had taught her to fear everyone. Nita, Desba cried. Nita, it's me. It's mother. It's mama. But the girl kept screaming, kept fighting, terror overriding everything else. Warriors ran toward them, 20, 30, weapons raised. I didn't think, didn't plan. Leveled his rifle at her head. I hit him. Leveled his rifle at her head. I hit him. Full force tackle. We went down in a tangle of limbs. His rifle discharged. The bullet went wild, flew over the wickiups and disappeared into the morning sky. We rolled, fought. He was stronger than me, faster. Apache warriors trained from childhood to fight, trained to kill. I was just a Montana mapmaker who'd gotten lucky so far. His knife came out, flashed in the sunlight, slashed at my face. I jerked back, felt the blade kiss my cheek. Hot, wet, blood running. He raised the knife for a killing blow, eyes locked on mine. No mercy in them. Just the cold calculation of a man doing what needed to be done. A rifle butt cracked across his skull. He dropped, collapsed onto me, unconscious. I looked up. Naichi stood there. He'd hit his own warrior, saved my life. Go, he said. Take the woman and child. Go now before Geronimo comes, before this gets worse. Why bust him? Because you spoke truth earlier. Because I am tired of children being used as weapons in old men's wars. Because maybe if you live, if you remember this day, you will remember that not all Apache are monsters. That some of us still believe in honor, in mercy, in the idea that children should grow up with their mothers. He pulled me to my feet, shoved me toward Desba. Go, he shouted. Before I changed my mind, I grabbed Desba's arm. She still held Nita. The girl had stopped screaming, stared at me with huge brown eyes. 8 years old, skinny, dirty, terrified. We ran toward the eastern cliff, toward the crack in the rock where Desba had descended. Warriors shouted behind us. Some ran to cut us off. Others hesitated, looked to Geronimo's wickiup, waiting for orders. Then Geronimo's voice, loud, commanding, in Apache. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. Stop! Everyone froze. Geronimo walked toward us, the same slow, deliberate walk as before. His face showed nothing, no anger, no surprise, just weariness. We were dead. I knew it. We'd failed. The rescue was over. But I stepped in front of Desba and Nita anyway, raised my hands, tried one last time. She's just a mother trying to save her daughter, I said, my voice steady despite everything. Let them go. Keep me. I'm the one who matters to the army, not them. Trade me for them. Please. Geronimo stopped 5 feet away, looked at me, at Desba, at Nita. The little girl had buried her face in Desba's shoulder now, her small body shaking. Desba's whole body shook too, from fear, from relief, from 3 months of hell ending in this impossible moment. You offer trade, Geronimo said quietly, your life for theirs. Yes. Why, because it's right. Because that child doesn't deserve to be a pawn in our war. Because her mother loves her. Because I can't walk away from that, won't walk away from that. Right. He said the word like tasting something bitter, testing it. Your people talk of right, of justice, of law, of morality, but you take our land, kill our people, break treaties whenever convenient, put us on reservations like animals in cages. Where is right in that? Where is justice? There isn't any, you're correct. My people have done terrible things to yours. I can't fix that, can't make it right, can't undo the past, can't bring back the dead or restore what was taken. But I can do this, right now, in this moment. I can let a mother have her daughter back. I can choose mercy over vengeance. I can choose one child's life over military glory. That's something, maybe the only thing that matters. Geronimo was quiet. The whole camp was quiet. 60 people holding their breath, waiting for their leader to decide who lived and who died. Then Geronimo spoke to Desba, in Apache, his voice low. Serious? She answered, her voice shaking but strong, defiant even. They went back and forth. 3 exchanges, 4, a conversation I couldn't understand but could feel, could sense the weight of it. Finally, Geronimo nodded, once. Sharp, he turned to me. Desba says you saved her life, sucked poison from rattlesnake bite, risked your life for plant to heal her. She says you are different from other white soldiers. She says you have honor, that you see Apache as human, not as animals to be exterminated. I try. She also says you are a terrible liar. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. That you have no 500 soldiers coming. That this is trick to keep me talking while she rescues her daughter. That your captain has only 23 men, not 500. My stomach dropped. Is okay, I know this already. Our scouts counted your men 2 nights ago. Watched your camp. Reported 23 soldiers, not 500. He paused. But you have courage to come here alone, to offer your life for woman and child you barely know, to risk everything for what you believe is right. This is what Apache do. This is warrior behavior. Protecting family, even if not blood family. So I understand you, respect you. He looked at Nita, at the small girl clinging to her mother, then back to me. Take them, he said. Take woman and child. Go back to your soldiers. Tell your Captain Lawton that Geronimo will surrender. But not today. Not tomorrow, in 1 month. When moon is full again, I surrender at Fort Bowie. With honor. With ceremony. Not like criminal dragged in chains. Like warrior who chooses peace instead of endless war. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't process. You'll surrender. I am old, tired. My people are hungry, hunted like animals, dying one by one. This war cannot be won. Can only be survived. Or ended. He looked at Nita again. And I am tired of children suffering for old men's pride. Tired of using 8-year-old girls as weapons. Tired of being monster in children's nightmares. Time to stop. Time to rest. Time to let my people live, even if that life is on reservation. Even if that life is smaller than what we had. At least it is life. 1 month, you swear it. I swear on names of my children, living and dead. On names of my wife, my mother, my ancestors. His voice was solemn, sacred. In 1 month, I come to Fort Bowie. I surrender my rifle. My warriors surrender theirs. We go to reservation. We live. It is enough, must be enough. Because fighting forever is just another way of dying. He turned away, walked back to his wickiup, dignified, proud even in defeat. Warriors parted, made a path for us. Go, Naichi said softly, before anyone changes mind, before pride overcomes sense. Desba didn't wait. She ran for the cliff. I followed. We climbed. Desba moved one-handed, holding Nita with the other. The child had stopped fighting. Maybe recognized her mother now. Maybe just too exhausted to resist. Maybe just accepted that this was happening. I climbed behind them, protecting their backs, expecting bullets any second. None came. We reached the ridge, looked back one final time. The Apache camp lay below. Geronimo stood outside his wickiup, watching us. Raised one hand, not a wave, not quite, just acknowledgement, recognition of something that had passed between us. I raised mine back. Then we were over the ridge and running. The desert had never looked so beautiful. We ran for an hour without stopping. Desba carried Nita for the first 20 minutes. Then the girl's weight became too much, the venom still weakening Desba's leg, the adrenaline wearing off. I took the child. She didn't resist. Just transferred from one set of arms to another like a small bundle of bones and terror. She was lighter than she should have been. 3 months of captivity had made her thin. I could feel her ribs through her dress, feel how her body trembled continuously like a frightened bird. It's okay, I told her. Kept my voice soft, steady. You're safe now. We're taking you home. Taking you to your mama. She looked up at me, those big brown eyes that Desba had described. Her father's eyes, filled with confusion and fear, and something else. Hope, maybe. Or just exhaustion so complete that she couldn't feel fear anymore. Are you my mama's friend? She asked. Her English hesitant, soft, the first words she'd spoken that weren't screams. Yes. Good. Mama needs friends. The simple statement broke something in my chest. This child, 8 years old, stolen from her bed, held hostage for 3 months, used as a weapon, still worried about her mother needing friends. We kept moving, down the mountain, through arroyos and across ridges, retracing our path from the night before. But faster now, more desperate, because every minute counted, because Geronimo might change his mind, because his warriors might decide honor mattered less than revenge. Desba limped badly now, the medicine wearing off completely, the venom asserting itself again. Her face went gray. Sweat poured down despite the morning cool. "We need to stop," I said. "You need to rest." "No, keep moving. If we stop, I won't start again. Keep moving until we reach the camp, until we're safe, Amoemo. You're not safe if you collapse. Then I'll collapse at the camp, with soldiers around us, with guns protecting us, not here, not in the open where anyone can find us." She was right. I hated it, but she was right. We moved on. The sun climbed higher, the heat returned. That brutal Arizona heat that sucks moisture from everything. From the land, from the air, from human bodies trying to cross it. My feet were hamburger meat, blood squelched in my socks with every step. I'd probably lose several toenails. Might get serious infection. Didn't care. Would deal with it later. Nita fell asleep on my shoulder, exhaustion finally claiming her. Her small body went limp, dead weight. I adjusted my grip, kept walking. "Tell me about Montana," Desba said, her voice weak but determined, trying to stay conscious, trying to keep moving through sheer force of will. "Tell me about snow, about cold, about trees. Give me something besides heat and pain." So I talked, told her about winter in the Rockies, about snow so deep you couldn't see fence posts, about pine trees heavy with white, about the silence that comes when everything is frozen, about the sound ice makes on a lake when it's thick enough to walk on but thin enough to crack, about northern lights dancing green and purple across black sky. I talked and she listened, and we kept moving. We reached Skeleton Canyon around noon, 6 hours after leaving Geronimo's camp. 6 hours of running and climbing and pushing past pain and exhaustion. The spring appeared ahead, our camp, safety, but something was wrong. There were more than 23 men. I counted at least 40, maybe 50. Cavalry uniforms, horses everywhere. Desba saw it too. "What?" We rounded the final bend. Captain Lawton stood at the center of a large group, but beside him was another officer. Older, more stars on his shoulders. A colonel maybe, or higher. And there, sitting on a horse with his head bandaged, was Sergeant Kane. Alive, awake, scowling. They saw us, every head turned. Lawton's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Relief, anger, confusion. He strode forward. "Corporal Hartwell, Miss Redstone." "What in God's name?" He stopped, stared at the child in my arms. "Who is that?" "Her daughter," I said. "Nita. Geronimo had her. We got her back." The camp exploded into noise. Questions, shouts, soldiers crowding around, the unknown officer pushing through. "Stand aside," the officer barked, his voice like a whip crack. Everyone stepped back. He was in his 50s, gray hair, gray mustache, weathered face, stars on his shoulders. 3 of them. A colonel, maybe higher. "I'm Colonel Nelson Miles," he said, "commander of the Department of Arizona. I arrived this morning with reinforcements after receiving Captain Lawton's emergency dispatch about missing soldiers and a possible Apache uprising." He looked at me, at Desba, at Nita. "Someone explain what the hell is happening here." Lawton stepped forward. "Sir Corporal Hartwell and Scout Redstone left camp last night without authorization. Sergeant Kane attempted to stop them. Was assaulted. We've been preparing a rescue mission." "We didn't need rescuing," I interrupted. "We needed Nita, Desba's daughter. Geronimo took her 3 months ago, held her hostage. That's why she's been leading us slow. That's why we haven't found him yet." She was protecting her child. Silence. You could hear the desert wind, the horses shifting. Nothing else. Miles looked at Desba. "Is this true?" She stood straighter despite the pain, despite the exhaustion. "Yes, sir. My daughter was taken from the reservation, used as leverage to control me, to keep me from leading the army to Geronimo's real location. I had to choose between my duty to the army and my duty to my child. I chose my child. I would make the same choice again." "Where is Geronimo now?" 10 miles north, Box Canyon in the Dragoon Mountains. 30 warriors. 60 people total, including women and children. Miles absorbed that. And you went there? Just the two of you retrieved the child and escaped. Corporal Hartwell distracted them, Desba said. Walked into their camp under white flag. Negotiated with Geronimo while I climbed in the back way. Got Nita out. They let us go. They let you go? Miles' voice was flat, skeptical. Yes, sir. Why would Geronimo do that? I spoke up. Because I offered him surrender terms. Told him the army was coming in force. Gave him the option to surrender with honor or die fighting. He chose surrender. Said he'll come to Fort Bowie in 1 month. When the moon is full. Said he's tired of war. Wants his people to live, even if that means reservation life. Miles stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Geronimo, the Apache who's been fighting for 40 years, who's killed hundreds, who's evaded every attempt to capture him, told you he'd surrender. Yes, sir. And you believe him? Yes, sir, I do. Why, because he swore it on the names of his children, living and dead. Because I saw it in his eyes, the exhaustion, the resignation, because he's not a monster. He's a man who's been fighting so long, he's forgotten why he started, and he wants it to stop. Miles was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to Kane. Sergeant, you were there when they left. What was your assessment? Kane shifted uncomfortably, touched his bandaged head. Sir, Corporal Hartwell did assault me. That's true. But his reasoning was sound. The scout's daughter was being held hostage. He helped her retrieve the child. I don't see that as desertion. I see that as mercy, as humanity. Miles looked surprised. You're defending him, Sergeant. The report said you called him a traitor. I was wrong, sir. I let old prejudices cloud my judgment. Corporal Hartwell acted with honor. Possibly saved lives by negotiating with Geronimo instead of forcing a battle we might not win. I stared at Kane. He met my eyes, nodded slightly. Miles turned to Lawton. Captain, your assessment. Lawton looked at me, at Desba, at the child sleeping on my shoulder. Sir, technically, Corporal Hartwell violated multiple regulations, left camp without authorization, assaulted a superior officer, engaged in unauthorized negotiations with a hostile force. Under normal circumstances, I'd recommend court-martial. My stomach dropped. However, Lawton continued, circumstances are not normal. If Geronimo actually surrenders in 1 month, Corporal Hartwell will have accomplished what we've been trying to do for 6 months. He'll have ended the Apache Wars without firing a shot. That has to count for something. Miles nodded slowly. And if Geronimo doesn't surrender, if this is a trick, then we know where he is, Lawton said. We have 50 men here. We can attack the box canyon. End this by force if necessary. But you'd rather not. I'd rather not, sir. Every battle costs lives. Ours and theirs. If we can end this peacefully, that's preferable. Miles walked over to me, looked at Nita. She was still asleep, her small face peaceful for the first time in probably months. That's what this is about, he asked quietly. This child? Yes, sir. You risked your life, your career, everything. For one Apache child you'd never met. Yes, sir. Why, Mom, I thought about all the answers I could give, about duty and honor and morality and all the big words we use to justify our actions. But in the end, the truth was simpler. Because she's 8 years old, sir. Because she was scared and alone and being used as a weapon. Because her mother loves her. Because I couldn't walk away from that. Because if we can't show mercy to children, what the hell are we fighting for? Miles held my gaze for a long moment. Then he turned to Desba. Miss Redstone, you lied to this command for 3 months. Led us astray. Potentially endangered soldiers' lives. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Desba's voice was steady. No, sir, I did what I did. I would do it again. My daughter is worth more than my honor. More than my life, more than anything. If that makes me a traitor, then I'm a traitor. I can live with that. Miles nodded. Corporal Hartwell, here's what's going to happen. You're confined to camp until we return to Fort Bowie. No duties, no weapons. Consider yourself under arrest pending Geronimo's surrender. If he surrenders as promised in 1 month, all charges are dropped. You get an honorable discharge, and you go home. If he doesn't surrender, you face court-martial for desertion assault and conduct unbecoming. Understood. Understood, sir. Miss Redstone, you're relieved of scout duties? You and your daughter will be escorted back to Fort Bowie under guard. Not as prisoners, but for your own protection. There are men in this territory who won't be happy about what happened here. Who'll see this as Apache treachery. You'll stay on base until the situation is resolved. Yes, sir. Sergeant Kane, get these people water and medical attention, especially the child. Yes, sir. Miles turned to address the whole camp. We wait here one more day, rest, resupply. Then we return to Fort Bowie, and we wait to see if Geronimo keeps his word. If he does, this war ends. If he doesn't, we end it for him. The camp dispersed. Soldiers moved back to their duties, but the atmosphere had changed. The tension between humans and Apache, between us and them, had softened, not disappeared, but softened. A medic approached, young man, maybe 25. Sir, let me take the child, get her checked over, get some food and water in her. I handed Nita to him carefully. She woke as she was transferred, looked around, confused, scared. Mama, she called out. Desba was there instantly, limping but there. I'm here, baby. I'm here. This man is going to help you, going to make sure you're okay. I'll be right here the whole time, not going anywhere, never leaving you again. Nita relaxed. As long as her mother was close, everything was okay. They took Desba too. Her leg needed proper treatment. The venom needed to be fully flushed from her system. She needed rest. I was left standing alone. Kane approached. Come on, Corporal, let's get those feet looked at. You're bleeding through your socks. I'm fine. You're not fine, you're a mess. Now sit down and let the medic work before you lose your toes to infection. I sat. The medic, same one who'd taken Nita, came back and unwrapped my feet. His face went pale. Sweet Jesus, Corporal! What did you do to yourself? Walked 10 miles, ran another 10, without boots. Why the hell would you do that without boots? Needed to be quiet. He shook his head, cleaned the wounds, applied bandages, gave me a lecture about proper foot care that I only half heard. When he was done, Kane sat beside me. We didn't speak for a while, just sat in the shade of a rock watching the camp. I'm sorry, Kane said finally, for what I said, what I thought. You're not a traitor. You had reasons to think I was. Reasons aren't the same as being right. He touched his bandaged head. Did you have to hit me so hard? You told me to make it look real. Fair enough. He was quiet for a moment. That little girl, Nita, she looks like my Sarah did at that age. Same eyes, same way of looking at the world, like it might hurt her. Does it get easier being away from them? No, it gets harder. Every day you miss is a day you can't get back. Every birthday, every milestone, gone. By the time I get home, Sarah will be 13, practically grown, won't even know me anymore. Then why do you stay? Why keep re-enlisting? Kane looked at his hands. Because this is all I know. Because the Army's been my family since I was 17. Because going home means admitting I don't know who I am without the uniform. He paused. But seeing you tonight, seeing what you did for that child, for her mother, made me think maybe there's more to life than war. Maybe it's time to go home, while I still have a home to go to. You should. Sarah needs her father. Yeah, she does. We sat in silence again, comfortable now. Two men who'd been enemies becoming something like friends. The days passed slowly. We stayed in Skeleton Canyon for 2 more days, then made the journey back to Fort Bowie. Took us a week, slow going with supplies and extra soldiers. I spent most of the trip under arrest, but nobody treated me like a prisoner. Soldiers nodded as I passed, brought me extra rations, shared their coffee. Word had spread about what happened, about the rescue, about Geronimo's promise. Some thought I was a hero, some thought I was a fool. Most didn't know what to think. Desba rode in a wagon with Nita. The girl never left her mother's side, wouldn't even sleep unless Desba was touching her. 3 months of captivity had made her terrified of being alone. I watched them sometimes, mother and daughter, the way Desba would stroke Nita's hair, the way Nita would reach for her mother's hand, the way they looked at each other like they were confirming the other was real. That's what I'd fought for, that connection, that love. Worth it. Whatever happened to me, it was worth it. We reached Fort Bowie on June 24th, 1 week after the rattlesnake bite that changed everything. Colonel Miles made his report. I was confined to quarters while they decided my fate. Days passed, then weeks. Desba and Nita were given a small cabin on the fort. 2 rooms, not much, but safe. Protected. I wasn't allowed to visit them. Regulations. I was under arrest, technically. Couldn't fraternize. But sometimes I'd see them from a distance. Walking to the mess hall. Nita slowly coming back to life. Smiling sometimes. Laughing once when a butterfly landed on her hand. Healing. Both of them. July turned to August. August turned to September. I'd almost given up hope that Geronimo would actually come. Almost convinced myself it had been a lie, a trick, that I'd been played and would pay the price. Then on September 4th, 1886, it happened. A sentry called out. Riders approaching from the north. The whole fort mobilized. Soldiers grabbed weapons, took positions, expected an attack. But it wasn't an attack. It was Geronimo. He rode at the head of a column of warriors, 30 men, all armed, all proud, riding in formation like a military unit. Disciplined, dignified. They reached the fort gates and stopped. Geronimo dismounted, walked forward. General Nelson Miles, he'd been promoted, came out to meet him. I watched from the window of my quarters, pressed against the glass like a child watching a parade. Geronimo handed Miles his rifle, a Winchester, beautiful weapon, well maintained. "I am Geronimo," he said, his voice carrying in the morning air. "I surrender. The Apache wars are finished." Warriors behind him laid down their weapons. One by one, rifles, bows, knives, a pile of arms growing at the gate. Soldiers didn't cheer, didn't celebrate, just watched in silence, witnessing the end of something, the end of 40 years of war, the end of an era. Photographers appeared, set up cameras, captured the moment for history, for newspapers back east, for people who would never understand what it meant, what it cost. After the formal surrender, Miles walked to my quarters, unlocked the door himself. "Corporal Hartwell, you're free. All charges dropped. Honorable discharge signed and waiting for you at headquarters. You can go home." "Thank you, sir." "Thank Geronimo. He kept his word. That's the only reason you're not in Leavenworth prison." He paused. "What will you do now?" "Go back to Montana, I think. Maybe teach cartography at a school. Maybe just hunt and fish and try to forget." "Will you forget?" I thought about Desba, about Nita, about the taste of venom and blood, about a night walk through enemy territory, about choosing humanity over orders. "No, sir, I don't think I will." "Good. The world needs people who remember, who know that the right thing isn't always the easy thing, who choose mercy when they could choose revenge." He shook my hand, left. I walked out of that small room for the first time in months, breathed free air. The first place I went was the cabin where Desba and Nita lived. I knocked, waited. Nita opened the door. She'd gained weight. Her cheeks had color now. Her eyes were brighter. "Mr. Hartwell." She threw her arms around my waist, hugged me tight. Desba appeared behind her. Nita let the man breathe. But she was smiling. First genuine smile I'd ever seen from her. "You heard?" I asked. "Whole fort heard. Geronimo surrendered. You're free. We're all free. What will you do now that it's over?" "Stay here for a while. Let Nita recover. Then maybe go back to the reservation. Try to build a life. Teach her to read and write English so she can survive in the world that's coming. Maybe start a school for other Apache children. Help them learn to navigate between two worlds." "That sounds good. Important." "It's necessary." She paused. "What about you?" "Going home to Montana. Leaving on the train tomorrow." Something passed between us. Sadness, regret, but also acceptance. We'd been bound together by extraordinary circumstances, by life and death and blood and venom. But that didn't mean we belonged together. Didn't mean our paths ran parallel forever. Some connections are meant to burn bright and fast, then become memory. "Will you write?" she asked. "Let us know how you are." "Yes, if you want me to." "I want you to. Nita will want to know about Montana, about snow, about all the things you told me in the desert." "Then I'll write, I promise." We stood there awkwardly, not knowing how to say goodbye, how to acknowledge what we'd been through, what we'd meant to each other for those few intense days. Finally, Desba stepped forward, pulled me into a hug, quick, fierce. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for saving me, for saving her, for seeing us as human when no one else would. You did the same for me." She pulled back, reached into her pocket, pulled out something wrapped in cloth, the turquoise stone, the one she'd given me on the boulder. "You dropped this during the fight at Geronimo's camp," she said. "I found it after, kept it safe." She pressed it into my hand. "Keep it. Remember us. Remember that you have Apache family, that you're always welcome, that we'll never forget you." I closed my fist around the stone, felt its warmth, then I pulled out something I'd kept, the small bracelet. The one Nita had made when she was 6, the one Geronimo had sent as proof of life. "I want you to have this back," I said, Held it out to Desba. She shook her head. No, you keep it. You earned the right to carry her story, to know that you saved her, that you made a difference. Nita stepped forward, took the bracelet from my hand, looked at it, at me. I made a new one, she said, held up her wrist, a fresh bracelet, similar pattern but different colors. This one is from after, from the good part, the part where Mama came back, where you came back, where we were safe again. She pressed the old bracelet back into my hand. You keep the old one. Remember the bad times, so you remember why you helped, why it mattered. 8 years old and already wiser than most adults I'd known, I hugged them both, long, tight, trying to memorize the feel of it. The smell of wood smoke and sage that clung to Desba's hair. The small bird-bone fragility of Nita's body. Then I left. Walked away, didn't look back. Some goodbyes need to be clean. Quick, before you change your mind. The train pulled out of Fort Bowie the next morning. I watched Arizona fade behind me. Red rocks, blue sky, desert that held secrets and memories and ghosts. I went back to Montana. Got a job teaching cartography at a small college in Helena. Never married, never had children of my own. But I kept the bracelet, and the turquoise stone, and the memories. And I wrote letters every month to Desba and Nita, told them about Montana, about my students, about the quiet life of a man who'd once been brave for 60 seconds and built a whole life on the memory. They wrote back, told me about the reservation, about the school Desba started, about Nita growing up, learning, becoming strong like her mother. Desba died in 1916. Influenza epidemic swept through the reservation, killed hundreds. She was among them. 56 years old, too young, but she'd lived long enough to see her daughter grow up, get married, have children of her own. Nita wrote me the news, said her mother's last words were about me, about the white man who showed her that honor transcended skin color. That humanity mattered more than hate. Years passed. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Nita grew up, became a teacher like her mother, taught Apache children on the reservation, English and math and history, but also Apache language and traditions and stories. Keeping enough of the old ways that they remembered who they were, learning enough of the new ways that they could survive. And she taught them about me, about the cartographer who once saved her mother's life, who walked into Geronimo's camp alone, who chose humanity over orders. The story became legend on the reservation. Grew, changed, got embellished. But the core remained true. A white soldier who saw Apache as human, who helped when he didn't have to, who changed the course of lives. June 17, 1936. 50 years to the day since the rattlesnake bite in Skeleton Canyon. I was 74 years old, living in Helena, Montana, retired from teaching, spending my days reading and fishing and watching the world change around me. My hands were old. Arthritis made them stiff, made it hard to open things, hard to write, hard to do all the small tasks that young hands take for granted. But I managed to open the letter that arrived that morning, postmarked from Arizona, from the reservation. Inside, a photograph fell out. I picked it up. A woman, maybe 60 years old, gray in her hair, lines around her eyes. But I recognized her. Those eyes. Brown, her father's eyes. Nita. And beside her, a young woman, maybe 25. Dark hair, gold-flecked eyes like honey in sunlight. Nita's daughter. My pseudo-granddaughter. I'd never met her. The letter was written in careful script. Dear Thaddeus, my mother asked me to write this before she died last week. She was 58 years old. Cancer took her. The same disease that's taking so many of us. They say it's from the mines, from the water, from the government not caring what happens to reservations. But that's not what this letter is about. My mother wanted you to know that you saved more than her life that day. You sucked the rattlesnake venom from my grandmother. You saved her faith in humanity. You showed her that people can be good, even across terrible divides, even when everything says they should be enemies. She spent her whole life teaching Apache children that not all white people are enemies, that some keep promises, that honor exists in all colors. She taught me the same, taught hundreds of children. And some of them became teachers, and they taught hundreds more. Your honor lives in them, in their children, in everyone touched by the ripples of one good choice made in a canyon in Arizona 50 years ago. My mother kept the map you gave my grandmother, the one with the X marks showing where you were bitten, where you got medicine, where you climbed to the camp, where you brought her home. On the back, she wrote, "Some debts are paid in blood, others in mercy. Both are sacred." She was right. Thank you for sucking the venom that day. You saved my grandmother Desba, my mother Nita, me, 500 children my mother taught, their children, their grandchildren. That's what one good act does. It echoes. Forever, with gratitude, Sarah Redstone. I read the letter 3 times, then I went to my desk, opened the drawer where I kept the map I'd made 50 years ago, my master copy, the one that showed all of Arizona territory. I'd marked every place I'd ever been, every canyon, every spring, every ridge, every place where something important happened. But the most important marks were the 4 X's, the ones that matched the map I'd given Desba. X, where the rattlesnake struck. X, where I found the medicine plant. X, where we climbed to Geronimo's camp. X, where we brought Nita home. I pulled out the bracelet, still in my desk after all these years. Faded, fragile, but intact. Pulled out the turquoise stone, still warm somehow, still carrying whatever piece of Desby's spirit she'd claimed lived in it. Held them in my old weathered hands. 50 years, half a century since that day in Skeleton Canyon. And it still mattered more than anything else I'd ever done. They asked me about the Apache Wars when I taught. Asked about Geronimo, asked about the battles and the tactics and the politics and all the big important things that make it into history books. I told them about Desba instead, about the woman I was taught to hate, the woman who became the bravest person I ever met, the woman whose blood was on my tongue and whose trust was in my hands, about a little girl named Nita who just wanted her mother, about an old warrior named Geronimo who chose peace when war was all he'd ever known, about a night in the desert when borders disappeared and only humanity remained. I told them that war doesn't end with treaties or surrender ceremonies. It ends when people choose to see each other, really see each other. When a white soldier puts his mouth on an Apache wound and sucks death out. When an Apache mother trusts that white soldier with her daughter's life. When enemies become something else, something better. When we choose mercy over hatred. When we choose humanity over orders. When we choose to see people instead of sides. That's when war really ends. I'm old now, 74 years, don't have much time left, body's failing, lungs weak from too many years of Montana cold, heart tired from too many beats. But I'll die knowing that 50 years ago I made one choice that mattered. One choice that echoed through generations. One choice that proved we're more than our uniforms and our skin and our sides. I chose to suck venom from a stranger's thigh. That simple act changed everything. Saved a woman. Saved her daughter. Led to 500 children being taught that humanity transcends hate. Led to their children learning the same. Led to generations of people who grew up knowing that mercy is possible, that seeing someone as human is a choice we make, that borders exist only if we draw them. I keep the bracelet on my desk, the turquoise stone beside it, and the map with 4 X's marking the places where I learned what it means to be a man. Not a soldier, not a cartographer, just a man who sucked venom from an Apache woman's thigh and discovered that the real map was never on paper. It was in the heart. And some borders once crossed change you forever. The good kind of forever. The kind that makes you believe humanity is worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth living for. I died 2 months later, August 1936. Pneumonia. The doctor said my lungs just gave out. Said I'd lived a good long life, 74 years, more than most. They buried me in Helena, small funeral, a few former students, some old Army buddies who'd survived into old age, and one Apache woman, late 50s, who traveled from Arizona to Montana to stand by my grave. Sarah Redstone, Nita's daughter, my pseudo-granddaughter. She placed 2 things on my coffin before they lowered it into the ground. A new bracelet, woven by her daughter, the 4th generation carrying on the tradition, and a turquoise stone, not the one Desba had given me that was buried with me in my pocket where it belonged. A new stone from the same sacred place, with a note attached. You carry our spirit. We carry yours. The bond endures. Thank you for choosing mercy. Thank you for choosing us. Your memory lives in everyone we teach, in everyone they teach, forever. Sarah stood by my grave for a long time. Then she began singing, in Apache, a song about warriors who cross borders, about strangers who become family, about debts paid in blood and mercy, a song about a white man who saw Apache as human, a song they still sing on the reservation, that they teach to children. That keeps my memory alive in a place I never lived but somehow belong to. Because that's what happens when you choose humanity. You become part of something bigger than yourself. You become a story that echoes, a map that guides future generations toward mercy instead of hate, a reminder that seeing people as people is always the right choice, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard.